Welcome. This is a comprehensive, chapter-by-chapter audiobook summary of the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Preface. Over the course of this journey, we'll explore each of the 48 timeless principles that reveal how power moves, how influence is built, and how control is won or lost. This is not just a book about ambition or manipulation, it's a manual of human nature, showing us the strategies and mistakes that have shaped leaders, generals, and thinkers throughout history. In the preface, Robert Greene lays the foundation. He reminds us that power is not a luxury, but a reality of life. Whether we admit it or not, every relationship, at work, in politics, in families, contains an element of power. Those who deny this often fall victim to those who recognize it. By contrast, those who understand the rules of power, even reluctantly, are better prepared to protect themselves and succeed. Greene explains that these laws are distilled from centuries of history, emperors and courtiers, generals and rebels, con artists and visionaries. The stories of figures like Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, Bismarck, and Catherine the Great are woven together, not to glorify ruthlessness, but to illustrate enduring lessons. Some laws may appear harsh or cynical, but Greene insists that pretending the world is kinder than it is can leave us exposed. Knowledge, not ignorance, is the best shield. Another key point in the preface is the neutral stance Greene takes. He is not telling us to be moral or immoral. He is saying, this is how power operates. The reader must decide how to use this knowledge, whether to guard against manipulation, to rise in influence, or simply to understand the dynamics around them. Just as a book on strategy doesn't force you into war, the 48 Laws of Power doesn't force you into scheming, it prepares you to recognize the game. Greene also emphasizes the structure of the book. Each law is introduced with a clear statement, followed by historical examples that prove its effectiveness, and balanced with reversals showing when breaking the rule might be wiser. This pattern, principle, example, reversal, creates a rhythm that is both instructive and cautionary. You're not only told what works, but also when it fails. Finally, the preface acts as both invitation and warning. It invites the listener to absorb the timeless lessons of history, but it also warns that once you open your eyes to the mechanics of power, you can never truly unsee them. Power becomes visible everywhere, at work, in friendships, even in the most intimate of bonds. This awareness can be unsettling, but it is also liberating. So, as we begin this comprehensive summary, remember, the purpose is not to turn you into a manipulator, but to make you aware, prepared, and capable of navigating a world where power is always at play. Next, we'll enter the first law, never outshine the master, a lesson in the dangers of eclipsing those above you. Law 1. Never outshine the master. Principle. The very first law of power is deceptively simple but endlessly important: never outshine the master. If you make those above you feel insecure, overshadowed, or unnecessary, they will turn against you. Power depends on hierarchy. If you blind your superiors with your brilliance, you will provoke envy, fear, and resentment. The key to survival is to let others feel secure in their position, even if you secretly surpass them in talent. Historical examples. One of Greene's central examples is Nicolas Fouquet, the finance minister of France under King Louis XIV. Ambitious and brilliant, Fouquet threw a magnificent celebration at his newly built chateau, filling it with fine art, gardens, and entertainment meant to impress the young king. But rather than being flattered, Louis XIV felt eclipsed. The splendor made the king feel small by comparison. Days later, Fouquet was arrested and spent the rest of his life in prison. His mistake? He revealed too much of his own glory, forgetting that a ruler must never feel overshadowed. By contrast, there is the example of Galileo Galilei. Although a genius in astronomy and physics, Galileo packaged his discoveries as gifts to the powerful Medici family. Rather than claiming credit for himself, he named the moons of Jupiter after the Medicis, presenting his findings as if they glorified them. This clever humility earned him patronage and protection. Galileo's survival and success came not from dazzling alone, but from making others shine brighter. Reversal. Are there times when outshining the master is safe? Or even necessary? Greene notes that occasionally, when your superior is weak, fading, or in need of rescue, displaying your abilities can secure your place. But this is the exception, not the rule. Even then, the art is in making your talent appear like loyalty or service, not ambition. The danger of envy is always lurking, and history shows that those who rise too visibly often fall the hardest. The lesson of Law 1 is caution. Restrain your brilliance, and master the art of subtlety. Make your superiors feel comfortable, admired, and indispensable. Your light should never blind them, it should reflect back onto them, so they see themselves as greater than they are. In the next law, we move from hiding our brilliance to guarding our intentions. Law 2 teaches us why revealing too much of our plans can make us vulnerable, and how secrecy is itself a powerful weapon. Law 2. Never put too much trust in friends, learn how to use enemies. Principle. Trust feels safest when it rests on friendship. Yet in the arena of power, friendship is volatile fuel, it burns bright, then turns unpredictable. Friends are easily stirred by envy, entitlement, or boredom. The same intimacy that comforts you also arms them with knowledge of your weaknesses. Enemies, however, can be made useful precisely because their motives are visible. Once reconciled, a former foe has something to prove and everything to lose. Greene's warning across these pages is cold but practical. Lean less on friends, and learn to bind enemies to you, through interest and necessity. Historical examples. The cautionary tale begins in 9th century Byzantium, with Emperor Michael III and his favorite, Basilius. Michael raised Basilius from horsegroom to the very heart of the court after the young stableman saved him from a runaway mount. Showered with gifts, schooling, and rank, Basilius rose swiftly, head of the stables, then noble, then, astonishingly, co-emperor. Michael's affection blinded his judgment. When court politics tightened, his mother Theodora banished, her lover Theoctistus murdered, his uncle Bardas looming as a rival, Michael leaned harder on the friend he trusted most. Basilius answered that trust, first by whispering poison about Bardas, then by striking. At a great horse race, he closed in on Bardas and stabbed him in the crowd. With Bardas gone, Basilius's appetite only grew. When the spendthrift emperor pressed him for repayment of lavish loans, Basilius responded with the smile of a man who no longer feared his benefactor. A few nights later, soldiers entered Michael's chambers. By dawn, the emperor was dead, and Basilius rode through Constantinople, holding his former friend's severed head aloft on a pike. Love had ripened into ambition, gratitude had curdled into murder. The friend raised too high became the most dangerous enemy. Turn now to China, where Zhao Kuangyin, Emperor Sung, solved the same problem with elegant ruthlessness. Newly enthroned, after an era of coups, in which generals made and unmade emperors, he invited his most powerful commanders to a private banquet. Wine flowed, the guards were dismissed. The generals blanched, this was how purges began. Instead, Sung confessed his fear, which of you does not dream of ascending the throne? Then he offered them a trade. Give up your commands, he said, and I will give you estates, splendid dwellings, singers and gardens, peace instead of peril. By morning, the generals had tendered their resignations. In one stroke, he defanged the friendly wolves, who might have torn him down, binding them not with affection, but with comfort and distance. Sung applied the same logic to defeated rulers. When King Lu of the southern Han surrendered, courtiers urged the emperor to dispose of him. Sung handed Lu a brimming cup. Terrified it was poison, Lu begged for his life. Sung laughed, took the cup, and drained it himself. There was no poison, only a calculated gesture. He transformed a beaten enemy into a grateful dependent. Later, after subduing another kingdom, Sung honored its ruler, Qian Shu, with gifts for the journey home. Among them was a sealed bundle. Halfway back, Qian opened it and found documents proving he had plotted rebellion. Sung had known, and spared him anyway. Gratitude, reputation, and fear of exposure chained Qian to loyal service more firmly than any oath. Across these episodes the pattern is unmistakable. The emperor ruined by friendship promoted a man who believed himself indispensable. The emperor secured by prudence rewarded enemies in ways that made fidelity rational. Friends presume, enemies remember. Friends feel owed, reconciled adversaries feel watched. A leader who binds people by sentiment invites caprice. A leader who binds them by interest neutralizes it. Reversal. Do friends always betray? Not inevitably. Bonds forged in hardship can harden into steel. The friend, who has shared risk, when betrayal would have been easy. The companion who took the blow meant for you, who chose your cause when it cost him, may, over time, prove more reliable than a coerced foe. Yet Greene's counsel is to treat such friendships as rare and to separate private affection from public power. Reward proven friends, but never grant them unchecked authority. Test them with boundaries, scrutiny, and limited remit. In appointments that truly matter, prefer those whose loyalty is secured by what they stand to lose, reputation, office, comfort, over those who rely on your fondness. Sentiment belongs to the hearth, strategy belongs to the throne. The heart of law too is discipline. Let warmth comfort you, but let calculation protect you. Do not hand power to a friend simply because he is close. Convert enemies into allies whose incentives run in your favor, and keep both camps under watch. Love, fear, ambition, these are materials, bind them wisely. Next we change terrain, from choosing allies to guarding plans. Law 3, Conceal your intentions shows how openness invites sabotage and how mystery turns attention away from your next move. Law 3. Conceal your intentions. Principle. Imagine walking into a room where everyone already knows your next move. Every word you speak, every gesture, every plan, anticipated before you act. That is what happens when you reveal your intentions too openly. You surrender the advantage of surprise. Greene's counsel in these pages is blunt. Transparency is not a virtue in the struggle for power. Your real goals should be hidden like the roots of a tree, feeding the trunk, unseen by the eye. What you show the world are branches and leaves, distractions, signals they can interpret a dozen ways. Mystery disarms. When rivals do not know what you want, they cannot mount an effective defense. While they argue over appearances, you arrange the reality. By the time they finally understand your aim, the outcome should already be set. Historical examples. Otto von Bismarck, the Iron Chancellor of Prussia, built a nation on concealment. His aim was audacious: unite the German states under Prussian leadership. Declared openly, it would have triggered a coalition of powers, Austria, France, perhaps even Britain, to crush him. So he clouded his intentions in smoke and mirrors. Before the Austro-Prussian War of 1866, he soothed Vienna with friendly language about adjustments and administration, while quietly modernizing the Prussian army and ensuring neutral neighbors. When war came, Austria discovered too late that Bismarck's adjustment was a decisive restructuring of power. A few years later, he provoked France into the Franco-Prussian War by publishing the edited EMS dispatch, a telegram trimmed to inflame French pride and make them seem the aggressor. France lunged first. The southern German states, stung by French arrogance, rallied behind Prussia. In both cases, Bismarck's true intention, unification under Prussia, remained hidden until the map had already changed. Concealment did not mean silence, it meant misleading emphasis, calculated ambiguity, and impeccable timing. Louis XIV concealed intention with theater. Versailles was not merely a palace, it was camouflage. He lured the nobility from their provinces to his glittering court, where dawn rituals, levees, costumes, and dances consumed their days. Courtiers competed for the honor of holding the royal candlestick, of handing the king his gloves, of attending the royal supper. Amid the velvet and gold, they mistook proximity for power. But while they chased favors and traded gossip, Louis centralized the state, strengthened the army, and tightened fiscal control. The nobles, drained by spectacle and distance from their lands, became courtiers, ornaments circling the sun. By the time they realized how much authority had slipped away, it was gone. Concealment here was not a locked door, it was a dazzling hallway leading everyone in the wrong direction. Joseph Fouché, Napoleon's Minister of Police, practiced concealment as a survival art. He lived through revolution, terror, and restoration because no one could quite locate his loyalty. Under the Jacobins he wore the zealot's face. Under Napoleon he became indispensable, sifting intelligence from a vast network of informants. Under the returning Bourbons, he presented himself as the one man who could keep order. He kept dossiers, held secrets, and offered fragments to each side without showing his core. Enemies hesitated to destroy him because they could not be sure whose names were in his files, or what chaos might follow. Fouché did not boast or declare, he allowed rumors and partial truths to do the work. When Napoleon fell, many of the empire's brightest men fell with him. Fouché remained, not because he was loved, but because his intentions were unreadable and his usefulness undeniable. Across these scenes the pattern is the same. Those who reveal aim, invite opposition. Those who mask their aim, invite confusion. Concealment buys time, scatters enemies, and lets you choose the moment of truth. Whether through edited letters, gilded ritual, or careful ambiguity, the result is identical. Rivals swing at shadows while you complete the real work in silence. Reversal. Concealment is not a religion, it is a tool. Used without judgment, it curdles into paranoia and isolates the leader from allies. There are moments when selective disclosure builds strength. Wartime leaders have often revealed the outline of a plan, enough to rally support and coordinate effort, while guarding the decisive details. Franklin Roosevelt spoke plainly about broad goals to steady the public, yet the timing and thrust of operations remained secret. Commanders in the field tell their troops enough to inspire confidence without handing the enemy the map. Sometimes openness itself can be a decoy, reveal a harmless intention to distract from the real design. The rule is balance. Disclose what reinforces your position, hide what could arm your opponents. Total mystery breeds suspicion, calibrated clarity buys trust while the core stays concealed. Law 3 teaches a habit: let appearance be your decoy, intention your hidden engine. Keep people busy with the show, documents, ceremonies, friendly assurances, while you move in silence toward the result. When your plan finally surfaces, it should feel less like a blow than a fait accompli. By then, the time for resistance is gone. Next, we refine the method by tightening speech itself. Law 4, always say less than necessary, shows how words leak intention and how restraint creates gravity. Say little, and people supply meaning. Say too much, and you hand them the map to stop you. Law 4. Always say less than necessary. Principle. Words are like arrows. Once released, they cannot be taken back. Greene warns that the more we speak, the more we reveal our insecurities, our desires, our plans. Powerful people cultivate restraint. They understand that silence creates mystery, and mystery creates respect. Brevity makes words heavier. A single phrase can strike harder than a flood of chatter. By saying less, you control interpretation. Others project their own meanings, and in that space of uncertainty, your authority grows. Historical examples. Louis XIV of France embodied this law. Known as the Sun King, he made brevity an art form. His most famous phrase, l'état, c'est moi, or I am the state, contained volumes in 4 words. At court, Louis spoke little, forcing nobles and ministers to guess his thoughts, interpret his silences, and compete for favor. This deliberate restraint elevated his aura. The less he said, the more people believed him capable of anything. In stark contrast, many who talk too much invite their own downfall. Cardinal Richelieu observed that if one gives him 6 lines written by the most honest man, he could find something in them to hang him. The lesson: the more words you spill, the more weapons you hand your enemies. Greene also recounts stories of negotiators and courtiers undone by over-explaining, their verbosity exposing weaknesses and giving rivals information to exploit. Reversal. There are rare moments when saying more is strategic, when passion, eloquence, or storytelling can inspire loyalty. Leaders addressing armies or movements sometimes need words to ignite courage. But even then, the speech must be precise, rehearsed, and purposeful. The danger lies in speaking casually or excessively, without intent. Power requires the discipline to hold silence until words are truly necessary. Law 4 reminds us that restraint is not emptiness, it is control. A single measured phrase can command more power than an endless explanation. Say less than necessary, and you draw others into your orbit, forcing them to wonder and to fill the silence with their own imagination. Next, Greene sharpens the lesson further. Law 5, so much depends on reputation, guard it with your life, shows how carefully chosen silence and words combine to protect the most valuable asset of all, your name. Law 5. So much depends on reputation, guard it with your life. Principle. Reputation is the cornerstone of power. It is the shadow that precedes you, shaping how others treat you before you act or speak. Greene emphasizes that a strong reputation multiplies influence, it intimidates rivals, attracts allies, and protects you from attack. Conversely, once tarnished, a damaged reputation is nearly impossible to restore. Guard it as fiercely as treasure, for it opens doors no money can buy and defends you against threats before they materialize. Reputation is both sword and shield. Historical examples. In Renaissance Italy, Cesare Borgia understood the power of reputation better than most. His cruelty was infamous, but it was also calculated. When he appointed the ruthless Ramiro de Orco to pacify the rebellious Romagna, the province was subdued swiftly through terror. But to avoid becoming hated himself, Borgia staged a dramatic spectacle. He had Ramiro executed and his body left in the town square, split in two. The message was clear: Borgia was strong enough to use terror, but just and merciful enough to punish excess. His reputation grew as both fearsome and fair, giving him greater authority than any speech could. Greene also points to the reputation of Queen Elizabeth I of England. As a female monarch in a patriarchal age, she understood the fragility of perception. Elizabeth cultivated an image of the Virgin Queen, married to her people rather than a foreign prince. By refusing marriage, she denied European rivals an opening to control her throne, and by carefully staging her appearances, riding among her soldiers in armor, giving eloquent speeches, she fostered an aura of invincibility. Her reputation was not just symbolic, it was a living force that deterred invasion and secured loyalty. Reputation also destroys. In the 19th century, financier Jay Gould was branded the most hated man in America, after his ruthless market manipulations. His reputation for dishonesty became so strong that even when he tried to play fair, rivals assumed he was scheming. His name became a weight that dragged him down, proof that once reputation rots, even vast wealth cannot erase the stench. Reversal. Is reputation always a blessing? Sometimes, being overly concerned with it can backfire. Obsession with image may lead to paranoia or empty posturing. Greene cautions that while reputation must be guarded, it must not control you. Occasionally, adopting the guise of a bad reputation can be useful, striking fear into opponents or lowering expectations. Yet these are rare exceptions. In most cases, a good name multiplies opportunities and protects you before conflict even begins. The wise guard reputation like armor, but never let it suffocate action. Law 5 shows that reputation is not mere vanity, it is a currency of power. A strong name precedes you, shaping the battlefield before you step onto it. Guard it with vigilance, polish it with care, and let it fight battles silently on your behalf. Next comes Law 6, court attention at all costs, where Greene explores how visibility itself is power, and how disappearing from sight can be as dangerous as losing your name. Law 6. Court attention at all costs. Principle. What is unseen does not exist. In the marketplace of power, obscurity is death. Greene explains that visibility is strength, people remember what they see, not what they do not. By drawing attention, you assert control over the narrative. By fading into silence, you allow others to write your story for you. Court attention, not for vanity's sake, but to remind the world of your presence. A well-timed appearance, a bold gesture, or a touch of spectacle keeps rivals guessing and allies alert. The law is simple: avoid invisibility, for in power, being forgotten is as dangerous as being defeated. Historical examples. Julius Caesar mastered the art of attention. In Rome, a city crowded with ambitious men, Caesar distinguished himself through lavish games, eloquent speeches, and calculated acts of generosity. His debts were enormous, but the spectacle he created made him indispensable. People remembered his name, and memory became loyalty. By refusing obscurity, Caesar built momentum that eventually carried him to supreme power. In contrast, consider Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison. Tesla was the greater visionary, but he cared little for public attention. Edison, by contrast, courted it tirelessly. He gave dramatic demonstrations of his inventions, cultivated an image of the tireless genius, and ensured his name stayed in the papers. History remembers Edison not because he was always the better scientist, but because he was always visible. Tesla, brilliant yet withdrawn, died in obscurity. The lesson: without attention, even genius fades. Greene also highlights P.T. Barnum, the great showman. Barnum understood that scandal was better than invisibility. He staged hoaxes, promoted curiosities, and kept his name in constant circulation. There is no such thing as bad publicity, he believed, because attention itself was the currency of influence. Rivals mocked him, but the public never forgot him. And forgetting, in power, is the true death. Reversal. Yet, attention must be courted with care. Too much can provoke envy or ridicule. Overexposure may dull the aura of mystery. Greene notes that sometimes retreat strengthens the effect of return. A leader who withdraws at the right moment creates hunger for his presence, making reappearance an event. Occasional absence sharpens attention, while constant visibility risks triviality. The rule is not endless noise, but strategic spotlight, enough to ensure you are never invisible, but not so much that people grow weary. Law 6 reminds us that attention is power's oxygen. Those who command the spotlight shape perception, those who vanish from it surrender the game. Court attention with boldness, wit, or spectacle, but manage it carefully, letting mystery deepen the effect. Next comes Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit, where Greene reveals how visibility can be maintained not only by effort, but by wisely using the labor and brilliance of others. Law 7. Get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Principle. Power is not about how hard you work, but about how much credit your name carries. The world does not peer into workshops, count hours, or track sweat. It remembers only results, and more importantly, who those results are tied to. Greene stresses that the wise ruler, leader, or creator builds an aura of greatness by attaching their name to the accomplishments of others. It is not laziness, it is leverage. Think of reputation as a magnet. Once people believe you are capable of brilliance, more opportunities, ideas, and talent are drawn to you. Each new success reinforces the cycle. Others do the building, but the world sees only the architect. This is why pharaohs are remembered for the pyramids, though tens of thousands of laborers hauled the stone. The symbol of power belongs to the figure at the top, not to the hands in the dust. This law also reveals a crucial distinction: effort consumes energy, while credit multiplies it. The worker exhausts himself in endless tasks, the strategist chooses carefully, orchestrates, and ensures his name is emblazoned on the outcome. By conserving effort and absorbing recognition, you extend your reach far beyond your personal capacity. In the long game of power, perception of achievement outweighs the reality of labor. Historical examples. Thomas Edison embodies this principle. At Menlo Park, dozens of assistants toiled endlessly, testing materials and running experiments. Edison was present, but he did not personally grind through every trial. Instead, he patented, publicized, and staged dramatic demonstrations. Newspapers hailed him as the genius of light, while his team remained anonymous. His true invention was the system, others provided the labor, but Edison ensured the world attached every breakthrough to his name. Genghis Khan mastered the same dynamic in conquest. He did not design siege engines or write administrative codes, yet when his empire absorbed Chinese engineers and Persian scribes, their innovations became Mongol victories. The empire bore his stamp because he positioned himself as the figure to whom all success flowed. History does not remember the nameless engineers, it remembers Genghis as the man who never failed. Reversal. Yet, taking credit without care breeds resentment. If contributors feel exploited, they may sabotage you, or worse, expose the truth. Greene warns that raw theft of credit is dangerous. It must be subtle, natural, and often accompanied by gestures of recognition that placate the worker. The The goal is not to deny their role, but to ensure your reputation overshadows it. At times, it is even strategic to share credit. By allowing others to bask in reflected glory, you bind them closer to you. A subordinate who feels valued under your banner becomes more loyal, believing that their success depends on your name. Generosity, used sparingly, strengthens your reputation for fairness while still ensuring that the public sees you as the center of achievement. Thus, the law is not about greedily hoarding every triumph, but about balance. Give away just enough recognition to maintain loyalty, but never so much that others eclipse you. The art lies in remaining the indispensable figure at the heart of every success. Law 7 teaches that history records names, not labor. You cannot afford to be merely the worker forgotten in the shadows. Build systems where others strive, but your name endures as the author of results. Conserve your energy, multiply your glory. Next comes Law 8, make other people come to you, use bait if necessary, where Greene explains how control of ground and timing can make rivals dance to your rhythm, forcing them to enter your arena on your terms. Law 8. Make other people come to you, use bait if necessary. Principle. Power is not only about strength, but about position. Whoever dictates the terrain, the timing, and the terms of engagement, already holds the advantage before the first blow is struck. Greene warns that chasing others, whether in politics, war, or personal rivalry, places you in their rhythm. You tire yourself while they choose the field. The disciplined player resists that impulse. Instead of racing after others, you construct conditions that compel them to come to you. Think of it as gravity. When your presence, your wealth, or your control of resources is strong enough, others are drawn into your orbit whether they want to or not. You set the center, and they revolve around you. Even when you lack overwhelming strength, you can still manufacture gravity through bait. An offer too tempting to resist, an appearance of weakness, or a prize that draws others into your chosen trap. The essence of this law is not aggression but orchestration. You define the stage, and you force rivals to play their part upon it. Greene notes that waiting does not mean inaction. It means building walls, gathering supplies, preparing alliances, and projecting confidence while others exhaust themselves. The one who moves rashly reveals his plan, but the one who holds ground makes others reveal theirs. Patience is not passivity, it is the discipline to conserve energy until the moment is ripe, when the opponent is overextended and you strike with precision. The psychology of this law is just as important as the strategy. People feel secure when they act on their own initiative. But if you can plant the idea, dangle the bait, or present the illusion of choice, they walk into your design believing it was theirs. This is the subtle mastery of power, shaping outcomes not by force but by gravity, letting others deliver themselves into your hands. Historical examples. One of the clearest examples comes from the Peloponnesian War. Pericles of Athens refused to be drawn into battle on Spartan terms. Instead of marching his army into open combat, where Sparta excelled, he pulled Athenians inside the city walls and relied on the fleet to harass enemy coasts. Sparta raged, burning Athenian farmland, but they could not force Pericles into their preferred fight. By holding position, Athens dictated the rhythm of war and conserved its strength, while Sparta bled itself in futile marches. Centuries later, Genghis Khan used bait with ruthless precision. In his campaigns against enemy tribes, he often sent small detachments to raid villages and then retreat, feigning weakness. Tempted by the prospect of easy victory, rivals pursued, only to find themselves ambushed by the full Mongol army, waiting beyond the horizon. Genghis understood that by letting others come to him, lured by false opportunity, he multiplied his advantage. The enemy's eagerness became their undoing. Greene also recalls the tactics of the 17th century French general Turenne. Rather than chase opponents across rough terrain, he entrenched his forces in strong positions, stockpiled supplies, and forced rivals to attack him on ground he had prepared. By making others exhaust themselves in desperate assaults, Turenne achieved victory with minimal losses. His power came from patience and control, not reckless pursuit. Reversal. But waiting carries dangers. If your position is weak, sitting still invites disaster. You appear hesitant, even cowardly. Rivals may seize initiative while you cling to caution. Greene reminds us that the point is not idleness but control. If patience sets the stage for the opponent to weaken himself, then waiting is strength. But if waiting signals that you have no plan, you hand control to others. There are also moments when moving first is itself a form of bait. A sudden gesture, a feigned retreat, or a deliberate offer can trigger the very response you want, pulling the other side into the ground you've chosen. The real mistake is not moving too early or too late, it is moving without shaping the conditions. Law 8 is about initiative cloaked in stillness. You appear to yield the first step, but in truth, you already know where the path will end. Law 8 teaches that victory belongs not to the swiftest but to the strategist who makes others cross the field. Conserve your strength, shape the battlefield, and let rivals walk willingly into the trap you set. The hunter who waits at the waterhole captures more prey than the hunter who chases endlessly through the forest. Next, Greene shows another discipline of restraint. Law 9, win through your actions, never through argument, reminds us that words rarely change minds, deeds do. Law 9. Win through your actions, never through argument. Principle. Words rarely change minds. Arguments often harden opposition, inflame egos, and create enemies who resent being proven wrong. Greene warns that persuasion by debate is fragile, it wins temporary points but leaves lasting bitterness. Action, on the other hand, speaks for itself. A decisive gesture, a concrete achievement, or a visible display of strength, bypasses words and appeals to what people cannot deny, results. The powerful demonstrate rather than explain, because deeds silence objections more effectively than rhetoric ever could. In politics, at court, or in personal life, arguments may win the battle of logic but lose the war of perception. Few people like to be lectured, everyone notices results. By training yourself to prove points through what you do, not what you say, you preserve authority, avoid quarrels, and leave rivals without ammunition. Historical examples. The Italian astronomer Galileo understood this law instinctively. Instead of arguing endlessly with scholars about the truth of heliocentrism, he demonstrated his discoveries through striking public experiments and mechanical models. By showing the moons of Jupiter through his telescope, he gave undeniable proof that not everything revolved around Earth. Words could be dismissed, the sight through the telescope could not. Galileo avoided pointless disputes by letting evidence speak louder than rhetoric. Similarly, during the French court intrigues, nobles who boasted of loyalty or courage often lost credibility when tested. By contrast, a noble who quietly acted in defense of the crown gained reputation without a word. Actions revealed truth more powerfully than professions of loyalty. Reversal. Are words always useless? Not entirely. In moments where emotion is more important than logic, such as inspiring troops before battle or consoling allies, speeches can move hearts. Yet even then, words must be tied to action. Empty rhetoric soon collapses. A speech becomes powerful when it is validated by deeds, just as promises only matter if fulfilled. Greene emphasizes that over-reliance on talk drains power, while a balance tilted toward action sustains it. Law 9 reminds us that silence and demonstration are more persuasive than endless debate. Argue less, act more. By proving your point in deeds, you win without provoking resentment. Next, Greene turns to the dangers of emotion. Law 10, infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky, explores how moods, energy, and misfortune spread like disease, and why associating with the wrong people can sabotage power. Law 10. Infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. Principle. Emotions and fortune are contagious. Greene warns that those consumed by misery, failure, or bad luck spread their state like an infection. To associate too closely with the perpetually unhappy is to invite their fate upon yourself. Misery craves company, and such people unconsciously drag others into their storms, through pessimism, chaos, or sheer bad timing. The law is not about cruelty but about survival. protect your energy, your spirit, and your opportunities by steering clear of those whose lives are marked by perpetual misfortune. Power requires clear judgment and steady nerves. But the unhappy distort perception. Their bitterness, suspicion, and complaints become the lens through which you begin to see the world. Their defeats become your defeats, their enemies become your enemies. By distancing yourself, you guard not only your time but also your mind from corruption. Seek out those whose energy is strong, whose fortunes run upward, for their confidence and momentum will reinforce your own. Historical examples. Greene recounts the tragic case of Lola Montez, the 19th-century adventuress who became mistress to King Ludwig of Bavaria. Lola was charming and beautiful, but she was also volatile and unlucky. Her influence over Ludwig destabilized his rule. The more he clung to her, the more chaos entered his court, riots broke out, ministers resigned, and Ludwig was forced to abdicate. Those around Lola soon found their reputations ruined by association. Her unhappiness infected all who drew too close. In ancient times, Plutarch observed how misfortune clings like a disease. He wrote that those marked by constant failure are like ships taking on water, anyone who boards risks sinking alongside. Roman generals often avoided unlucky commanders, even if they were competent, because their presence was seen as a bad omen. Reputation for bad luck alone could ruin a man, and those who ignored the warning signs often paid dearly. By contrast, history is full of figures who rose by aligning with the fortunate. Courtiers who attached themselves to rising princes, investors who supported merchants with momentum, and generals who sided with victorious leaders all gained wealth and prestige by absorbing the energy of success. The lesson is clear: fortunes rub off, both good and bad. Reversal. Does this mean one must abandon every friend in hardship? Greene clarifies, temporary misfortune is not the same as chronic unhappiness. A strong ally struck by brief bad luck may recover and reward loyalty. But those who live in perpetual defeat, whose unhappiness defines them, cannot be saved by your sacrifice. The line lies between the unlucky who are momentarily struck, and those whose lives are defined by despair. The former may rise again, the latter will pull you under. Law 10 warns us that energy and fortune are contagious. Protect your mind and future by avoiding those whose lives are marked by failure and bitterness. Seek instead the company of the fortunate, the confident, and the resilient. Align your destiny with theirs, and their momentum becomes yours. Next comes Law 11, learn to keep people dependent on you, where Greene shows how securing others' reliance makes you indispensable and shields you from betrayal. Law 11. Learn to keep people dependent on you. Principle. Power thrives on necessity. Greene teaches that the surest way to secure loyalty is not through affection or promises, but through dependence. When others believe they cannot survive, succeed, or flourish without you, their freedom to betray evaporates. If they need your knowledge, your resources, or your protection, their choice is narrow until serving you becomes their only path forward. This dependence must be cultivated carefully. Too much generosity breeds independence. If you give others everything without restraint, they may eventually feel strong enough to walk away. Too much harshness breeds rebellion. If you suffocate them, they will seek escape. The art lies in balancing empowerment with tethering. Provide enough that they prosper under your wing, but not enough that they can fly without you. Greene emphasizes that love and loyalty are unreliable currencies. Need is enduring. People may change affections, but they will not abandon what sustains them. By making yourself the indispensable source of opportunity, you transform allies, partners, even rivals into dependents. Their security becomes tied to your survival. Historical examples. Louis XI of France, known as the Spider King, mastered this law. He deliberately kept nobles divided and weakened so that none could challenge him. He offered them favors, pensions, and small responsibilities that ensured their prosperity, but he never allowed them to consolidate independent power. They needed him for their wealth, their status, and even their safety. As a result, betrayal was rare, not because they loved him, but because they could not risk life without him. Similarly, the Italian statesman Cesare Borgia secured loyalty not through affection but through dependence. He employed ruthless captains to subdue provinces, then executed them publicly, leaving their subordinates bound to him alone. By controlling armies, resources, and patronage, Borgia ensured that no one around him could act independently. His men might have feared him, but fear alone was not the glue, necessity was. In business, John D. Rockefeller created a similar dynamic. By controlling pipelines, railroads, and supply chains, he made competitors and clients dependent on his Standard Oil empire. Rivals who resisted soon found they could not transport or refine oil without crossing his network. Their survival depended on his goodwill, and that dependence kept them subdued. Reversal. Dependency is a double-edged sword. If those around you feel entirely shackled, they may grow desperate and turn violently against you. A master who hoards all power risks being overthrown by those with nothing left to lose. Greene warns that dependence must feel natural, not forced. The dependent must believe that they are free, even as their options quietly narrow. There are also moments when creating independence can work in your favor. By granting autonomy to allies at the right time, you may earn lasting gratitude and loyalty. A subordinate who feels empowered may still choose to serve if they believe their success stems from your patronage. True mastery lies not in chains, but in invisible cords of necessity, soft, flexible, and unbreakable. Law 11 shows that affection fades and promises are broken, but necessity endures. Make yourself indispensable, and others will bind their future to yours. Provide enough to sustain them, but never enough to free them. Your power grows strongest when their survival depends on your presence. Next, Greene shifts from dependence to disarmament. Law 12, use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim, reveals how small acts of truth or kindness can lower defenses and make others vulnerable to greater manipulation. Law 12. Use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. Principle. Deception often fails because it provokes suspicion. People brace themselves against trickery, scanning for hidden motives. But Greene teaches that a single act of honesty or a small gesture of generosity can pierce that armor. When you show apparent sincerity, you lower defenses. When you give something of value, whether information, a gift, or a concession, you build trust that makes your target vulnerable to manipulation. The key lies in selectivity. Constant honesty erodes the element of surprise, while constant generosity makes you appear weak or indebted. But a carefully chosen moment, an admission, a sacrifice, a gift, can change the entire balance of perception. People relax, believing they have glimpsed your true self, and in that moment of lowered guard, you can strike. Psychologically, honesty and generosity appeal to deep human instincts. We are trained to trust those who give, to feel gratitude, and to assume truth where it is costly. By deploying these instincts sparingly and strategically, you convert skeptics into believers. The mask of sincerity is far stronger than the mask of false flattery or brute force. Historical examples. In the 16th century, the con man, Count Victor Lustig, sold the Eiffel Tower for scrap metal, not once, but twice. His schemes relied on dazzling words and false documents, but their foundation was selective honesty. He carefully admitted minor truths, gave small signs of transparency, and even conceded points to his marks. These carefully chosen displays of honesty convinced victims he must be trustworthy. By the time they realized the deception, Lustig had vanished with their money. Another famous case is Abraham Lincoln's use of selective honesty as a lawyer. When arguing in court, Lincoln sometimes admitted weaknesses in his own case before the opposition could. This disarmed juries and made him appear more trustworthy than his rivals. Once he had their confidence, he pivoted and emphasized his strengths, often securing victory. His opponent's words seemed manipulative, while his seemed genuine. In politics, Franklin D. Roosevelt often used small acts of generosity to disarm critics. He would grant minor concessions or reveal limited truths, making rivals feel respected and valued. These gestures built enough goodwill to neutralize opposition, allowing him to press forward with larger, more controversial plans without resistance. Reversal. Honesty and generosity, if overused, lose their power. Too much giving looks like weakness. Too much truth invites exploitation. The skill lies in rarity. A single concession has impact, constant concessions make you predictable. There are also moments when honesty backfires, revealing too much can arm enemies. Greene's point is not to be honest or generous as a rule, but to use these tools like a surgeon's scalpel, precise, sparing, and at decisive moments. Law 12 reminds us that sincerity is a weapon, not a virtue. A well-placed truth or gift can build trust that shields your real design. But wield it carefully. Too often, and you become weak. Too rarely, and you seem false. Next, Greene expands the idea of strategy in relationships. Law 13, when asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude, shows how generosity and honesty must always be framed in terms of what others gain, not what they owe. Law 13. When asking for help, appeal to people's self-interest, never to their mercy or gratitude. Principle. Greene dismantles a common illusion that people act out of kindness, loyalty, or gratitude. In truth, self-interest rules most decisions. Gratitude fades, mercy is rare, and appeals to duty are quickly forgotten. If you want help, you must frame your request so that the other person sees direct benefit. Present cooperation as an opportunity, not a favor. When people believe that helping you advances their own goals, they respond with enthusiasm, even eagerness. The psychology is straightforward. Asking for help on the basis of pity or past favors places a burden on the other party. They may comply reluctantly, but resentment builds. By contrast, appealing to self-interest makes them feel empowered, not exploited. They act not for you, but for themselves, and in doing so, they serve your ends. This law teaches strategic empathy. See the world through your counterpart's eyes. Understand what drives them, ambition, fear, greed, pride, and link your request to that motive. By disguising your need as their gain, you create cooperation without resistance. Historical examples. When the Medici family rose in Florence, they mastered this law. Rather than begging allies for protection or favor, they offered partnerships that enriched others. Artists received patronage that built their fame, merchants gained access to lucrative trade. By ensuring everyone who helped them grew wealthier or more prestigious, the Medici turned service into self-interest. Their allies felt not exploited but elevated, and loyalty followed. In American history, Henry Kissinger demonstrated this principle in diplomacy. Instead of pleading with rival nations for concessions, he reframed negotiations so that cooperation seemed in their own best interest. By presenting agreements as mutual victories, he secured outcomes that advanced U.S. goals without appearing to demand favors. His genius lay in appealing to ambition, not mercy. Greene also cites the contrast between appeals to gratitude and self-interest in everyday life. A petitioner who says, "You owe me for what I did," earns irritation, while one who says, "This benefits us both," earns support. Gratitude chains people reluctantly, self-interest moves them willingly. Reversal. Are there times when gratitude or mercy work? Rarely, but they are unreliable. Gratitude fades quickly because it demands continued repayment for a past deed, which becomes burdensome. Mercy is fleeting because it depends on moral sentiment, which changes with mood and circumstance. Only self-interest is steady. Still, there are moments when invoking gratitude, especially in public, can shame someone into temporary cooperation. But Greene warns, never rely on it as a foundation. To build enduring alliances, tie others' success to your own. Law 13 reminds us that people are not sustained by memory of past favors but by calculation of present gain. When you ask for help, do not demand, do not guilt, do not beg. Show how your victory is their victory, and they will assist eagerly. Next comes Law 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy, where Greene reveals how gathering information through hidden motives can give you decisive power over rivals. Law 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. Principle. Information is power. Greene stresses that the most decisive victories are won before the first move is made, because the one who knows more already controls the field. Spying is not limited to espionage, it is the art of drawing out secrets, weaknesses, and ambitions from those around you. Yet, direct interrogation raises suspicion. The clever operator hides curiosity beneath friendliness. By posing as an ally, asking casual questions, and listening more than speaking, you collect intelligence without arousing defenses. The psychology is subtle. People reveal most when they feel comfortable, admired, or believed to be in control of the conversation. A false friend creates that illusion, lowering the guard of even the most cautious rival. Every slip of the tongue, every careless boast, every detail about fears or desires becomes ammunition. In contrast, the blunt seeker of secrets is resisted. The spy cloaked in friendship thrives because his target never realizes they are being mined. Knowledge gathered quietly allows you to anticipate moves, exploit vulnerabilities, and control narratives. Words of trust mask motives of strategy. This law teaches patience, listening, and disguise as the foundation of power. Historical examples. During the Italian Renaissance, courtiers frequently posed as companions while secretly reporting to rivals. The Duke of Ferrara was brought down when a supposed confidant passed his letters to enemies, revealing his plans. What ruined him was not open betrayal but his inability to detect the spy hiding behind a smile. In China's Warring States period, the strategist Zhang Yi posed as an ally to multiple kingdoms, learning their weaknesses while sowing discord. By pretending friendship, he extracted intelligence that enabled Qin to outmaneuver larger coalitions. His greatest victories came not from armies, but from words gathered in private chambers. Greene also points to Cardinal Richelieu of France. Known for his vast network of spies, Richelieu often gained intelligence through servants, mistresses, and companions who seemed harmless. Enemies found themselves defeated not on the battlefield but in negotiations where Richelieu already knew their secrets. Reversal. Spying carries danger. If discovered, it destroys trust permanently and provokes retaliation. To be exposed as a spy is to be branded forever as treacherous. Greene cautions that discretion is everything. The pose of friendship must be convincing, the questions subtle, the listening patient. There are also times when secrecy is unnecessary, when power itself makes others reveal all in the hope of winning favor. Kings, CEOs, and leaders often need only silence. People will volunteer secrets to impress them. Thus, spying is most effective when invisible, and least effective when clumsy. Law 14 teaches that knowledge is the hidden edge of power. Pose as a companion, draw out truths behind masks, and you will always be one step ahead. But guard yourself as well. Every friend may be a spy in disguise. Next comes Law 15, crush your enemy totally, where Greene reveals why half measures in dealing with rivals invite only revenge. Law 15, crush your enemy totally. Principle. Half measures are more dangerous than open defeat. Greene warns that, when you wound an enemy but leave them standing, you plant the seed of vengeance. Resentment festers, pride demands restitution, and even a weakened rival will wait for the chance to strike back. The only true safety is in total destruction, crushing not only the enemy's resources but also their will. This law is harsh, but rooted in psychology. People rarely forgive humiliation. When stripped of power yet left alive, enemies nurture hatred until opportunity arises. By contrast, when an enemy is utterly broken, stripped of hope, networks, or ability, they cease to be a threat. Power is secured not by mercy that breeds revenge, but by decisive finality. Crushing an enemy is not always physical destruction, it can be reputational or political. The goal is the same: leave no route for retaliation. An opponent who cannot rise again is an opponent who cannot endanger you. Historical examples. In ancient Rome, the general Scipio Aemilianus exemplified this law during the Third Punic War. When Rome defeated Carthage, many senators argued for mercy. But Scipio insisted on complete annihilation. The city was razed, its population enslaved, and the land cursed. Harsh as it was, this ensured Carthage would never rise again to threaten Rome. By contrast, earlier defeats of Carthage in the First and Second Punic Wars had left the city alive, and each time, it returned stronger. Greene contrasts this with the failure of Emperor Napoleon, who often left enemies bruised but not broken. After defeating Prussia and Austria, he imposed terms but allowed monarchies to survive. Resentment simmered, and when his fortunes declined, those same rivals rose to form the coalition that toppled him. His mercy bought only temporary peace, his downfall was the revenge of those he had failed to crush. Closer to modern times, business tycoon John D. Rockefeller followed this principle in commerce. Competing oil companies were not tolerated. He undercut them, bought their rail access, or absorbed them outright until Standard Oil dominated the industry. By eliminating rivals completely, rather than allowing them to linger, he secured dominance for decades. Reversal. Total destruction is dangerous if pursued blindly. Crushing an enemy entirely may earn you the reputation of cruelty, uniting others against you. Greene cautions that discretion is key, annihilate only when absolutely necessary, when the risk of leaving an enemy alive outweighs the costs of appearing ruthless. At times, converting an enemy into an ally or keeping them dependent may be more profitable than obliteration. Mercy, used strategically, can expand power, but only when it eliminates future threats rather than preserving them. Law 15 teaches that mercy without calculation is folly. A wounded rival becomes tomorrow's avenger, only decisive elimination secures lasting peace. Crush thoroughly, or do not strike at all. Next comes Law 16, use absence to increase respect and honor, where Greene shows how withdrawal, properly timed, can magnify your presence and strengthen your influence. Law 16, use absence to increase respect and honor. Principle. Familiarity breeds contempt. Greene explains that constant presence dulls value, while rarity sharpens desire. The more people see you, the more ordinary you become, the less they see you, the more your presence feels like a privilege. Strategic absence magnifies importance by creating anticipation and curiosity. This law is not about isolation but about timing. Too much withdrawal breeds irrelevance, too much visibility breeds disdain. The art lies in balance, appearing enough to maintain influence, then withdrawing so that your return feels like an event. Power grows when absence creates a vacuum that only you can fill. Psychologically, scarcity elevates value. People long for what they cannot easily have. By limiting access to yourself, your words, your time, your presence, you train others to treat each appearance as meaningful. Absence becomes a silent signal of worth. Historical examples. King Louis XIV, the Sun King of France, understood this instinctively. He limited audiences, controlled access, and made his presence scarce. Nobles waited hours or even days for a glimpse of him. When he did appear, the rarity of the moment heightened his aura. By contrast, those constantly available in court lost mystique, their presence taken for granted. In ancient China, the strategist Sun Tzu advised generals not to overexpose their troops in endless skirmishes. By holding back forces and striking only at decisive moments, a commander increased the impact of each move. Presence without restraint wasted strength, absence created surprise and magnified effect. Greene also recalls the example of playwright Oscar Wilde, who carefully managed appearances in London society. By disappearing from salons for stretches of time, then returning with wit and charm, he ensured people spoke of him even when he was not there. His absence made his presence sparkle brighter. Reversal. Absence is dangerous when miscalculated. If you withdraw too long or too early, you risk being forgotten or replaced. In politics, vanishing leaders create openings for rivals. In personal relationships, too much distance breeds coldness rather than longing. Greene cautions that absence must follow established presence, one must be valued before scarcity can increase worth. For the unknown or the weak, absence is simply obscurity. There are also moments when visibility itself is the key to survival. In times of crisis, retreat can look like cowardice. Constant presence may be necessary to reassure allies, rally supporters, or intimidate rivals. The wisdom of absence lies in rhythm: appear to establish authority, withdraw to magnify it, reappear to refresh it. Law 16 teaches that withdrawal can be more powerful than presence. By stepping away at the right time, you sharpen curiosity, respect, and desire. Let absence become a tool that magnifies value, not a void that erases it. Next comes Law 17, keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability, where Greene explores how uncertainty itself can be wielded as a weapon of dominance. Law 17, keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. Principle: predictability is comfort. When people can anticipate your actions, they relax, prepare, and resist effectively. Greene warns that power withers when it becomes routine. By contrast, unpredictability keeps rivals nervous, allies attentive, and everyone off balance. An unpredictable figure forces others to tread cautiously, unsure of where the next strike will land. The psychology is primal. Human beings fear uncertainty more than pain. A known blow can be braced against, but the unexpected generates anxiety that corrodes confidence. When you cultivate unpredictability, changing rhythms, breaking habits, acting in ways others cannot chart, you dominate not just through force, but through fear of the unknown. Unpredictability also multiplies authority. A reputation for instability, when carefully staged, makes opponents cautious and hesitant. They waste energy preparing for every possibility, while you conserve strength. The law is not chaos for its own sake, but controlled variation designed to keep others guessing. Historical examples. Ivan IV, of Russia, known as Ivan the Terrible, embodied this law. His unpredictable rages, sudden executions, and capricious mercy terrified boyars and courtiers. None dared oppose him because they could never predict whether defiance would bring reward or ruin. His air of terror kept the nobility fragmented and submissive. In war, Napoleon often shifted tactics abruptly, marching his army at unexpected speeds or striking where least anticipated. His unpredictability created confusion in enemy ranks, making them hesitate or deploy forces poorly. Victory often came not from superior numbers, but from rivals' paralysis in the face of uncertainty. Greene also notes how 20th-century leaders like Richard Nixon employed the madman strategy. By projecting unpredictability, even irrationality, Nixon made foreign governments cautious. If they could not predict his response, they erred on the side of restraint. The uncertainty itself was a form of deterrence. Reversal. Unpredictability can backfire if uncontrolled. A leader who appears truly unstable risks alienating allies and eroding trust. If unpredictability turns into recklessness, it undermines credibility and invites collapse. Greene emphasizes that the key is calculated unpredictability. You must control perception, creating enough uncertainty to instill respect and fear, without tipping into chaos that consumes you. At times, reliability is essential, when allies need stability, or when routine builds confidence. The art lies in alternating, predictable enough to inspire trust, unpredictable enough to inspire fear. Law 17 reminds us that fear of the unknown is a weapon. By breaking patterns and cultivating mystery, you keep others uneasy, forcing them to adjust while you remain in command. Predictability is comfort, unpredictability is power. Next comes Law 18, do not build fortresses to protect yourself, isolation is dangerous, where Greene explains why withdrawing too far from the world weakens, rather than strengthens power. Law 18, do not build fortresses to protect yourself, isolation is dangerous. Principle. When threatened, the instinct is to withdraw, to build walls of protection. Greene warns that this reflex is fatal in power. Fortresses, whether physical or social, create the illusion of safety, but in truth they cut you off from information, allies, and influence. Isolation blinds you to changes in the world, making you vulnerable to plots you cannot see. Power thrives on contact, connection, and presence. By remaining in circulation, observing, listening, mingling, you gather intelligence and sense shifting winds. In a fortress, you hear only echoes of your own fear. Worse, isolation breeds suspicion. Those outside resent your absence, those inside conspire unchecked. The true defense is not walls but mobility. By engaging with others, you control narratives and preempt attacks. The one who hides invites irrelevance. The one who remains present commands visibility and influence. Fortresses may protect the body, but they destroy the mind of power. Historical examples. Greene points to the downfall of the last Ming emperors of China. Faced with rebellion and crisis, they retreated into the Forbidden City, surrounding themselves with eunuchs and walls. Cut off from the suffering of the people and the shifting power of generals, they became blind to the threats outside. Rebellion swelled unchecked, and the dynasty collapsed. Their fortress had not saved them, it had entombed them. In medieval Europe, nobles often withdrew to fortified castles when rivals threatened. While stone walls offered temporary safety, they also trapped lords inside, cut off from resources and alliances. Enemies simply surrounded the walls and waited. Fortresses that were meant to symbolize strength became prisons of weakness. Contrast this with rulers like Louis XIV, who avoided retreat. By living at Versailles and keeping himself constantly visible, he controlled nobles directly. His fortress was social, not stone. He bound rivals to his court where he could watch them. His openness was safer than walls because it denied others the space to conspire. Reversal. Are fortresses always dangerous? Not in every case. At times, temporary retreat can buy safety, during plague, rebellion, or assassination attempts. Even then, the key is brevity. Long-term isolation breeds weakness, while short-term withdrawal can protect until danger passes. Greene stresses that fortresses are a tool of last resort, never a strategy of rule. A fortress may preserve life for a moment, but it never preserves power. Law 18 teaches that isolation is not security, it is slow decay. The powerful remain present, engaged, and informed, never cutting themselves off from the lifeblood of influence. The fortress that promises safety, instead delivers blindness. Next comes Law 19, know who you're dealing with, do not offend the wrong person, where Greene explores the dangers of careless insults and the importance of reading character before acting. Law 19, know who you're dealing with, do not offend the wrong person. Principle. Power is not exercised in a vacuum, it is always exercised among people, each with their own temperament, pride, and vulnerabilities. Greene stresses that carelessness in judging others leads to disaster. A joke meant for amusement may insult, a slight intended as trivial may wound deeply. And some individuals, once offended, never forgive. The law teaches vigilance in reading character. Not everyone reacts the same way to offense. Some shrug off slights, others brood for years. Some strike immediately, others wait patiently for revenge. To treat all people alike is folly. The wise operator studies personalities carefully, gauging egos, insecurities, and patterns of behavior. Knowing who is dangerous to offend, and who is harmless, prevents accidents that could destroy you. This law is also about restraint. In moments of power, it is tempting to belittle or mock. But insults carry hidden costs. The smallest wound can swell into a vendetta if dealt to the wrong person. The shrewd path is to measure every interaction, avoiding unnecessary enemies and focusing hostility only where it serves purpose. Historical examples. The playwright and courtier Balthasar Gracian observed that fools blunder into quarrels by ignoring the nature of their opponent. Greene echoes this with the story of Niccolò Machiavelli, who warned princes that some men can be appeased, but others never forget an insult. A careless offense could cost a throne. In 17th-century France, court intrigues often hinged on wounded pride. A noble offended by a cutting remark might duel, scheme, or undermine a rival for years. Those who thrived at court, like Cardinal Richelieu, excelled not only in strategy but in their ability to read temperaments, flattering where necessary, and avoiding unnecessary provocation. Greene also recalls the example of Thomas Becket, the Archbishop of Canterbury. Once a loyal ally of King Henry II, Becket turned into a dangerous enemy when the king underestimated his pride. Offended by Henry's attempts to control the church, Becket resisted fiercely. Henry's careless treatment of him provoked a conflict that ended in Becket's martyrdom and tarnished the king's reputation. Reversal. Should one then avoid offending anyone at all? Greene cautions that this is impossible, and sometimes offense is useful. Crushing insults can break morale or establish dominance when carefully directed. The art lies not in universal caution, but in discrimination. Offend only those too weak to retaliate, never those with long memories, strong networks, or deep pride. When offense is necessary, make it final and unanswerable, leaving no room for revenge. Law 19 teaches that careless words and actions create enemies more dangerous than open rivals. Know the terrain of personality as carefully as the terrain of battle. Offend only when it strengthens you, never by accident, and never against those who cannot forget. Next comes Law 20, do not commit to anyone, where Greene shows how independence from factions and masters protects your freedom and multiplies your leverage. Law 20, do not commit to anyone. Principle. Independence is power's most reliable shield. Greene warns that in politics, war, and personal relationships, factions and masters constantly seek your allegiance. They present loyalty as virtue, but in truth, commitment is a chain. The moment you bind yourself to one side, you inherit their enemies, absorb their failures, and become a tool in their hands. The law teaches that power comes from fluidity. By remaining unattached, you preserve the freedom to move where advantage lies. You can play rivals against one another, extracting benefits from both without being trapped by either. When you commit too soon, you limit your options. When you hold back, you make yourself desirable, courted by all sides. Psychologically, humans crave certainty. They want to know who is with them and who is against them. Refusing to commit frustrates this need, making people chase you harder. The very act of remaining aloof magnifies your value. Like a rare jewel, your scarcity drives demand. By contrast, those who commit freely are taken for granted. This law is not cynicism, it is strategy. Independence prevents you from being dragged into conflicts that are not your own and ensures that your loyalty, when finally given, comes at a premium. Historical examples. In Renaissance Italy, the city of Milan often shifted alliances between France and the Holy Roman Empire. By refusing to tie itself permanently to either side, Milan leveraged its position, extracting concessions from both powers. When Milan finally chose, it was on terms favorable to itself. Its independence bought bargaining power. Greene also highlights Queen Elizabeth I of England. Pressured to marry for alliance, she resisted commitment. By remaining unmarried, she kept European powers in suspense. Spain, France, and domestic nobles all courted her, hoping to gain influence. Her refusal to bind herself ensured that England remained independent and that Elizabeth herself commanded respect as the Virgin Queen. Her power was magnified not by attachment, but by deliberate aloofness. In modern times, nations like Switzerland illustrate this law. By avoiding permanent entanglements, Switzerland has preserved stability and wealth for centuries, courted by all but bound by none. Its neutrality, frustrating to rivals, has also made it indispensable as mediator and banker. Reversal. Total independence can be dangerous if it isolates you. Without allies, you risk being overwhelmed by stronger coalitions. At times, strategic commitment provides protection. But Greene stresses that even then, you should commit lightly, preserving the ability to withdraw. The art lies in balance. Stay unattached as long as possible, commit only when the gain outweighs the loss, and even then, keep some distance. Your allegiance should never feel permanent, only conditional, only useful. Law 20 reminds us that loyalty demanded is loyalty lost. Independence allows you to be courted, valued, and protected by all without being captured by any. Never commit too soon, never bind yourself completely. Your power lies in remaining the prize that others chase. Next comes Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker, seem dumber than your mark, where Greene reveals how pretending ignorance or weakness can lure rivals into overconfidence and defeat. Law 21. Play a sucker to catch a sucker, seem dumber than your mark. Principle. Human pride is one of the strongest forces in social life. Most people would rather feel intelligent than actually be intelligent. They crave the sensation of superiority, of outsmarting others, of being the cleverest person in the room. Greene's law rests on this universal weakness. If you feed someone's pride, they lower their guard. If you challenge it, they resist with all their strength. Appearing less intelligent than you are is not humiliation, it is strategy. The moment you reveal your sharpness, people brace themselves. They choose their words more carefully, they share less information, and they plot to outmaneuver you. But when you allow them to believe they are dealing with someone slow, simple, or easily impressed, their vanity blossoms. They talk more than they should, they explain what need not be explained, and they underestimate your capacity to act. This tactic is more than disguise, it is psychological bait. When your rival believes they are smarter, they relax. They are eager to teach, to demonstrate, to show off. In doing so, they hand you knowledge, expose their vulnerabilities, and sometimes even overextend themselves in arrogance. By playing the fool, you guide them into error while you remain in control. It is also a shield against envy. Nothing attracts hostility faster than obvious brilliance. If you shine too brightly, others feel diminished and seek to cut you down. Pretending ignorance hides your edge until it is too late to resist it. The art lies in restraint, knowing when to dim your light and when to reveal it. Historical examples. François Villon, the 15th-century French poet, lived by wit and trickery. He often posed as a drunkard, stumbling and babbling like a fool in taverns. Companions dismissed him as harmless, never suspecting that he was observing, listening, and planning theft. His mask of stupidity made others careless, turning their confidence into his opportunity. John D. Rockefeller used a subtler version. In tense negotiations, he would sometimes ask naive questions, pretending not to understand financial details. Competitors, flattered by the chance to display their superiority, eagerly explained too much, revealing costs, strategies, and weaknesses. Rockefeller listened quietly, then exploited the information to devastating effect. His supposed ignorance was the lever that unlocked their pride. Even in politics, the tactic persists. Richard Nixon occasionally projected a clumsy, almost awkward public image. Opponents underestimated him, dismissing him as unsophisticated. Behind the scenes, his calculations were razor-sharp, and the very underestimation he cultivated gave him room to maneuver. Reversal. Yet, playing the fool carries dangers. If you lean too far into stupidity, you risk being dismissed entirely. Allies may not trust you with responsibility, opportunities may pass you by, and respect may erode. Greene cautions that the mask must be subtle, enough to flatter pride, but never so much that your own power disappears. There are also moments when the opposite is required. In times of crisis, allies need confidence, not camouflage. A general who pretends to be slow risks demoralizing his army. A leader who hides competence too long may lose followers. In such moments, you must shine openly, showing mastery that inspires trust. The art lies in flexibility. Most of the time, dim your intelligence just enough to disarm and gather information. When strength is required, reveal your true capacity with precision. Never flaunt brilliance constantly, that invites envy, but never bury it so deep that you appear weak. Balance creates both safety and opportunity. Law 21 teaches that pride is both weakness and weapon. Let others believe they are cleverer, and they will trap themselves in arrogance while handing you their secrets. Play the fool when it suits you, but never become one. Next comes Law 22, use the surrender tactic, transform weakness into power, where Greene shows how yielding in the moment can create long-term advantage, turning apparent defeat into lasting control. Law 22, use the surrender tactic, transform weakness into power. Principle. Pride is the enemy of strategy. When we are attacked, humiliated, or threatened, instinct pushes us to fight back immediately, to prove strength in the moment. Greene warns that this reaction is often fatal. If your opponent is stronger, resistance guarantees destruction. The wiser course is surrender, not as defeat, but as transformation. Surrender is not weakness, it is patience disguised as retreat. By yielding, you deny your rival the pleasure of crushing you. You sap their aggression by giving them no battle to win. Instead of expending your last reserves in a hopeless struggle, you preserve your energy, your resources, and your future. The true tactician understands that power is not measured in single confrontations, but in the ability to outlast and adapt. The psychology of surrender is subtle. An enemy who expects defiance but finds compliance is unsettled. Their adrenaline fades, their focus blurs, and they often grow careless or overconfident. They may even pity you, lowering their guard further. Meanwhile, you gain time. Time to study their strengths and weaknesses. Time to rebuild your resources. Time to wait for the moment when the balance shifts back in your favor. Surrender is also an antidote to ego. Those enslaved to pride choose martyrdom over strategy, preferring glorious failure to quiet survival. But in power, survival is victory. The one who can bend without breaking is the one who endures. Greene teaches that the essence of this law is control. You turn apparent loss into opportunity, making weakness a mask for strength. Historical examples. The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer endured a bitter legal battle with his landlady. For years, she provoked and sued him, seeking compensation. At last, Schopenhauer appeared to give in, agreeing to pay her a pension for the rest of her life. It looked like surrender. Yet he calculated carefully. The payment freed him from endless conflict and preserved his peace of mind. When the woman finally passed away, Schopenhauer noted dryly in his journal, "The burden departs with her." His surrender was not defeat but liberation. In ancient China, the general Han Jin staged surrenders and retreats to mislead stronger forces. By appearing to yield, he lured enemies into overconfidence and exposed them to ambush. His armies, seemingly broken, turned weakness into bait. Victories won through these tactics became legendary, proving that apparent submission can conceal decisive power. Mahatma Gandhi employed a moral version of this law. Against the might of the British Empire, violent resistance would have led to annihilation. Instead, Gandhi surrendered the battlefield of force and claimed the battlefield of conscience. His philosophy of nonviolence appeared submissive, yet it transformed weakness into global moral power. Britain could crush rebels with guns, but it could not crush Gandhi's symbolic surrender, which attracted sympathy, legitimacy, and eventually independence. Reversal. Yet surrender is perilous if misunderstood. To submit without calculation is not strategy but slavery. If you yield endlessly, you become a permanent subject. Greene cautions that surrender must always serve a larger plan, buying time, preserving strength, or shifting the terrain of battle. There are also times when resistance, even hopeless resistance, serves power. A last stand can inspire allies, create martyrs, and etch your name in history. The Spartans at Thermopylae were annihilated, yet their refusal to surrender rallied Greece and became legend. The key distinction is between tactical and symbolic outcomes. Surrender when survival is the path to eventual victory, resist when defeat itself creates power for those who follow. The art lies in perspective. Ask not, "Can I win today?" but, "How do I ensure I win tomorrow?" Sometimes the answer is to yield, endure humiliation, and wait for the moment to rise again. Law 22 teaches that surrender is not the end of power but its reinvention. Pride may crave immediate triumph, but wisdom plays the long game. Yield strategically, and you turn weakness into strength, buying time until fortune turns. Next comes Law 23, concentrate your forces, where Greene shows why scattering energy weakens influence, and why power grows strongest when focus is absolute. Law 23, concentrate your forces. Principle. Power is like light. Diffuse. It warms little. Concentrated, it burns through steel. Greene's lesson is clear: those who scatter their energy across too many fronts weaken themselves, while those who focus relentlessly on one objective multiply their strength. Most people are undone not by lack of ability, but by lack of convergence. They chase multiple goals, quarrel on all sides, and say yes to every distraction. Their days dissolve into exhaustion and half-victories. The disciplined learn to aim. They choose a single point where effort will yield disproportionate results, and they channel their resources, allies, and time toward that point. Strategic focus defines the larger campaign, whether it is one market, one city, one patron, or one discipline. Operational focus aligns budgets, teams, and routines so that every effort flows in the same direction. Tactical focus governs the day itself, choosing what deserves attention and ruthlessly cutting what does not. Each layer of concentration compacts power until it becomes undeniable. Psychologically, concentration radiates inevitability. Rivals sense that you are not dabbling but driving with full force, and they hesitate. The unfocused are noisy but fragile, the focused are quiet but relentless. Concentration also clarifies judgment. Once you commit to one priority, trade-offs become simple. You stop clutching at options and begin building momentum. That momentum acquires its own gravity. Investors, followers, and allies gather around whoever looks most certain to finish what they start. This law does not mean obsession without flexibility. It means discipline in a world designed to scatter attention. Power is not built by being everywhere at once but by being unmissable in the place that matters most. Historical examples. The Rothschild banking family concentrated their fortune in government bonds during the Napoleonic Wars. While other financiers spread themselves across shipping, textiles, or speculation, the Rothschilds unified their efforts. Their grip on this single, high-leverage niche gave them control over European finance and laid the foundation of an empire. Genghis Khan mastered the same law in war. He avoided scattering his armies across endless raids. Instead, he brought overwhelming force against one target at a time, erasing resistance city by city. The shock of total concentration broke enemies who might have withstood fragmented attacks. His empire spread not by breadth of effort but by focused blows. Even in the arts, we see the pattern. Molière resisted the temptation to dabble in tragedy or poetry. By devoting himself entirely to comedy, he refined the genre until it bore his signature. His rivals, scattered across many forms, are forgotten. His concentration gave him permanence. Reversal. Yet concentration without foresight can be ruinous. If you place everything on one pillar and that pillar collapses, your ruin is swift. Greene warns that focus must be paired with prudence. Use concentration to attack, but diversification to endure. Keep reserves, financial cushions, loyal allies, exit strategies, so that failure in one arena does not end the campaign. Beware also of stubborn focus on the wrong target. To pour resources into a flawed venture is not discipline but blindness. Concentration is powerful only when the aim is correct. This requires stepping back periodically, testing assumptions, and adjusting course. There is also a strategic use in appearing scattered while secretly focused. Let rivals chase your decoys, side projects, noisy ventures, while your true force builds quietly elsewhere. When your blow finally lands, it should feel inevitable to you and shocking to them. Finally, focus must breathe. Absolute exertion without pause leads to burnout and dull judgment. The most successful concentrate in surges, intense campaigns followed by consolidation and renewal. This rhythm prevents exhaustion while keeping momentum alive. Law 23 teaches that power is not about being everywhere, but about being unmissable where it matters. Concentrate your effort until your presence is overwhelming, cut away distractions that dilute your force, and aim your energy like a spear, not a mist. In a world that scatters attention, the focused stand apart as inevitable. Next comes Law 24, play the perfect courtier, where Greene shifts from the battlefield to the royal court, showing how grace, tact, and discretion, sustain influence in environments ruled by subtlety rather than force. Law 24. Play the perfect courtier. Principle. Raw power may conquer battlefields, but at court, and in modern life, in boardrooms and politics, subtlety rules. Greene explains that the perfect courtier thrives not through force but through charm, grace, and tact. Direct displays of ambition invite envy. Blunt honesty provokes resentment. The courtier veils desire, flatters egos, adapts to moods, and influences outcomes while appearing deferential. Power in such an environment flows not from domination but from perception. A careless remark can create enemies, an ill-timed demand can cost everything. The perfect courtier understands that survival and success depend on reading the room, who holds favor, who feels slighted, who must be placated, and who can be gently guided. At its core, this law is about emotional intelligence. The courtier does not push, but pulls. They do not boast, but hint. They do not demand loyalty, but inspire it through presence, elegance, and discretion. Such a person never overshadows their master but shines enough to be indispensable. Their art is invisibility, moving events without leaving fingerprints. Historical examples. The Italian courtier, Baldassare Castiglione, wrote the Book of the Courtier, in the 16th century, describing the balance required to flourish in royal courts. A true courtier displayed sprezzatura, effortless grace that concealed labor. He entertained with wit, deferred to rulers, and offered advice so delicately that it seemed spontaneous. Castiglione's model influenced generations, teaching that power in refined circles comes not from force but from elegance. Greene highlights Louis XIV Versailles, where nobles vied for favor. Those who thrived mastered flattery, dance, conversation, and discretion. A single misstep, an insult, an overreach, could result in exile. The Sun King himself embodied this law. He demanded constant ceremony not only for vanity but to ensure that courtiers were always measured, always cautious. The perfect courtier became expert at praise, timing, and silence. Even in modern politics, we see echoes. Diplomats who survive changing regimes are not those who shout ideology but those who flatter, compromise, and adapt. They appear harmless, but through tact and patience, they outlast blunt rivals. Reversal. Greene warns that courtier skills can corrode integrity if overused. To flatter endlessly is to lose authenticity, to defer too much is to vanish into irrelevance. There are also moments when directness, not subtlety, is required, when allies need clarity or when leaders demand firmness. The danger lies in forgetting that courtier skills are tactics, not identity. They must be wielded consciously, not lived blindly. Moreover, courts themselves can be traps. Excessive subtlety may secure influence in the short term but stifle ambition in the long term. Some rise higher by stepping outside the courtier role, by founding empires, leading armies, or seizing risks others fear. The wise learn courtier skills as protection but do not let them cage their destiny. Law 24 teaches that in environments ruled by perception, charm is stronger than force. Flatter without fawning, advise without arrogance, influence without appearing to do so. The perfect courtier shapes events while seeming only to serve. Next comes Law 25, Recreate Yourself, where Greene shows how identity itself can be crafted like a work of art, freeing you from roles imposed by others. Law 25, Recreate Yourself. Principle. Most people accept the roles the world hands them: dutiful child, loyal servant, obedient worker. They live inside identities shaped by parents, culture, and accidents of birth. Greene argues that this passivity is a prison. If you wish to wield power, treat identity as a craft, not a fate. Recreate yourself deliberately, like an artist revising a canvas, heighten certain colors, mute others, redraw the lines until the picture commands attention. Recreation is not deception, it is design. Others respond to appearances, tone of voice, dress, bearing, timing, far more than to whatever you privately are. The powerful know this and compose themselves the way a performer builds a role. They choose a public self that advances their aims, the calm strategist, the generous patron, the inscrutable thinker. When circumstances change, they refit the costume. Identity, handled this way, becomes a toolkit, not a cage. There is also strategy in dramatization. A simple act stated plainly is soon forgotten. The same act staged with ritual and symbol becomes legend. By adding ceremony to your choices, publishing your promises, naming your programs, framing your turning points, you transform ordinary steps into markers that others cannot ignore. The you that is seen is the you that survives. Refusing to recreate yourself carries its own cost. A fixed identity turns predictable, rivals map you easily. You become hostage to reputation, any early misstep hardens into a label you cannot shed. Reinvention breaks that spell. It lets you escape yesterday's story and claim tomorrow's stage. Historical examples. Julius Caesar understood the art of self-creation. He wrote of himself in the third person, shaping his image as Rome's cool, decisive savior. Battle reports were crafted like theater, facts arranged to highlight composure, mercy, inevitability. The general's public Caesar soon outshone his rivals. The persona won before the legions did. Renaissance princes practiced the same craft. Cesare Borgia shifted masks as needs changed, ruthless avenger to terrify rebels, merciful governor to calm provinces, magnificent patron to charm Rome. Each role was consistent with the whole, yet each was timed to the moment. Enemies who tried to grasp the real Borgia found only a sequence of effective performances. Modern showmen made identity their masterpiece. P.T. Barnum turned himself into a living advertisement, always smiling, always certain, always audacious. The man and the message fused until the persona earned attention on its own. He did not wait for reputation to arise, he minted it, day after day. Reversal. Recreation fails when it is frantic, hollow, or constant. If you change masks every week, people stop believing any of them. Greene's caution is to evolve along a thread, keep a recognizable core, competence, poise, purpose, while refreshing the outer form. The change should feel inevitable, as if you have revealed the person you were meant to be, not donned a disguise to trick the crowd. Authenticity still matters, but not as confession. Authenticity is coherence between your actions and your chosen role. If you play the stoic, then you must act with calm under pressure. If you play the visionary, you must deliver ideas that surprise and persuade. The mask and the deed must match. When they diverge, the audience feels the lie and punishes it. Beware of letting others script you. Flattery, outrage, or early success can trap you in a character that no longer serves your aims. Periodically step off stage to edit the role. What does this persona attract? What does it repel? What new shape would open the doors you want to walk through? Reinvention is not a spree of costumes, it is the disciplined authorship of your future. Law 25 teaches that identity is not destiny but design. Refuse the mask handed to you, craft the one that carries you farther. Set scenes, choose symbols, and make the you that is seen work for the you that is real. The world rewards clarity and spectacle, give it both, on your terms. Next comes Law 26, keep your hands clean, where Greene shows how to protect reputation, by letting others carry the stain of necessary but unpopular acts, while you appear immaculate and above the fray. Law 26, keep your hands clean. Principle. Reputation is a crown more fragile than gold. In the theater of power, people remember appearances more than mechanics. Greene warns that no matter how necessary ruthless acts may be, betrayals, punishments, harsh bargains, if you carry them out yourself, the stain clings to you. Resentment builds, trust erodes, and admiration turns to suspicion. The essence of this law is to keep your hands clean by letting others carry out what must be done, while you remain untarnished. This tactic is not hypocrisy. It is recognition that human beings prefer symbols to substance. They need to see leaders as noble, just, and benevolent, even if those leaders rely on machinery of severity. By shielding yourself behind agents, processes, or structures, you can preserve this illusion. The work of discipline continues, but the people see only fairness. The psychology is powerful, people want someone to admire. When leaders show cruelty directly, followers feel betrayed. But when cruelty is hidden, softened by buffers, or redirected to faceless systems, loyalty endures. The leader can console, forgive, and appear merciful, while still benefiting from harsh measures carried out in the shadows. Buffers also deepen dependency. Subordinates who enforce your will become tied to you, knowing that they bear the risks and you hold the shield. They grow more loyal out of necessity, for they need your protection. Meanwhile, you are free to play the part of healer after wounds are inflicted, enhancing your aura of generosity. Historical examples. Cesare Borgia illustrates this law vividly. To tame the unruly Romagna, he entrusted Ramiro de Orco with absolute authority to punish and terrorize. Ramiro restored order through ruthless means, executions, confiscations, intimidation. Once peace was secure, Borgia staged a spectacle. Ramiro was executed and his corpse displayed in the public square. Cruelty was blamed on the minister, mercy and justice were credited to Borgia. He retained the loyalty of the people while enjoying the benefits of terror. European courts institutionalized this practice. Kings of France relied on ministers such as Cardinal Richelieu, who enacted censorship, imprisonment, and war on their behalf. Hatred concentrated on the cardinal, while the monarch radiated benevolence. In England, monarchs often blamed unpopular decisions on parliamentary process or councils, preserving their own aura of fairness. Even in modern companies, executives insulate themselves through departments like legal or human resources, allowing difficult decisions to seem like the product of bureaucracy rather than personal choice. A subtler example is plausible deniability. Rulers often speak in hints and let subordinates misinterpret. The deed is done, but responsibility is blurred. Records are ambiguous, letters vague, orders delivered orally. When outrage surfaces, the leader laments, disowns the excess, and promises reform. Subordinates may fall, but the ruler remains untarnished, as though the cruelty was a mistake carried out without approval. Reversal. Yet Greene cautions that total detachment can backfire. If followers believe you never share responsibility, they may see cowardice. Subordinates burdened with endless blame may turn against you. To avoid this, occasionally accept a portion of the dirt, own one mistake, take one loss, or openly shoulder one punishment. Such gestures convince others that your purity is not artifice but balance. There are also rare times when doing the deed yourself is necessary. A single public punishment, carried out by your own hand, can strike fear into rivals and cement authority. History remembers leaders who, at decisive moments, exposed their severity openly. But these moments must be exceptional, theatrical, and final, one great blow followed by a return to mercy. If cruelty becomes routine, your name will never wash clean. Another danger lies in overusing scapegoats. If it becomes too obvious that blame always falls elsewhere, people will suspect manipulation. Rotate the instruments of severity, disguise their roles, and pair punishments with acts of generosity so that your balance, not your schemes, defines you. Systems that naturally diffuse blame, laws, regulations, markets, are safer than obvious sacrifices. In such designs, harsh outcomes seem inevitable, while you appear above the fray. Law 26 teaches that appearances weigh more than deeds. To preserve your name, distance yourself from the blood and dirt of power. Let others carry out what necessity demands, while you maintain the aura of virtue. Guard your reputation as fiercely as your throne, for in the end the two are one and the same. With clean hands, you can inspire loyalty, attract allies, and rule with seeming generosity. With stained hands, every kindness will be doubted, every gift seen as guilt. Next comes Law 27, play on people's need to believe, to create a cult-like following, where Greene shows how faith, ritual, and devotion can bind power more tightly than fear or reason. Law 27, play on people's need to believe, to create a cult-like following. Principle. Human beings hunger for meaning. Beneath ambition and desire lies a need to belong to something larger than themselves. Greene warns that power flows to those who can satisfy this longing. By offering a vision, a doctrine, or even a theatrical persona that promises purpose, you can attract devotion that mere logic or fear cannot sustain. To build true influence, do not simply command, become the object of belief. This law is about shaping faith, not proving arguments. Reason persuades minds, belief binds hearts. When people believe, they overlook flaws, excuse mistakes, and defend you against critics. They find identity in your cause, and that identity becomes self-reinforcing. Greene shows that the most enduring power structures, religions, movements, cults of personality, are fueled less by evidence than by ritual, symbols, and the promise of transformation. The skilled manipulator of belief creates an atmosphere of awe. They use mystery to suggest access to hidden truths, symbols to anchor emotion, and rituals to reinforce unity. By appearing larger than life, prophet, visionary, savior, they give followers something to submit to. The more extraordinary the claims, the more followers feel chosen, elevated above the ordinary. Belief, once established, justifies itself. Historical examples. Greene recalls the Prophet Muhammad, who united warring tribes of Arabia under a single creed. Beyond political leadership, his role as God's messenger satisfied deep spiritual hunger. Belief bound together what fear and bargains never could. The tribes became a nation through shared faith, not mere negotiation. Centuries later, the Dominican preacher Savonarola ruled Florence not with armies but with fiery sermons. He promised redemption and purity, casting himself as a vessel of divine judgment. Citizens surrendered wealth, books, and art to his bonfire of the vanities, convinced that sacrifice brought salvation. Though his reign ended violently, it revealed the grip belief holds over societies. Modern politics offers secular versions. Adolf Hitler transformed resentment into faith by presenting himself as a messiah of the German people. Through ritual rallies, symbols like the swastika, and promises of destiny, he captured devotion that ignored reason and moral restraint. His example, dark and destructive, proves the terrifying reach of this law when belief is weaponized. Even in less sinister form, the pattern persists. Apple under Steve Jobs cultivated near-religious devotion. The black turtleneck, the ritual of product launches, the language of insanely great innovation turned consumers into believers. The products mattered, but the myth of Jobs as visionary priest bound the community. Reversal. Belief is a double-edged sword. If you promise too much and fail to deliver, the same devotion can collapse into fury. Savonarola was adored until the city turned on him. Cult leaders who cannot fulfill their prophecies face violent rejection. Greene cautions that managing belief requires careful balance. Claims must be extraordinary but not immediately disprovable. Rituals must inspire awe without becoming transparent manipulations. There is also the danger of drowning in your own myth. Leaders who begin to believe their own inventions lose touch with reality. They confuse faith with fact, leading themselves and their followers into ruin. To survive, you must cultivate belief in others without surrendering your own clarity. Use belief as a tool, not as a mirror. Finally, not all contexts reward cult-like devotion. In highly rational environments, scientific communities, professional bureaucracies, too much mystique can provoke suspicion. In such settings, belief should be subtle, loyalty built through vision and consistency, not extravagant symbolism. Law 27 reveals that the deepest lever of power is belief. By satisfying people's hunger for meaning, by clothing your message in ritual, mystery, and promise, you inspire devotion beyond reason. Followers will defend you, sacrifice for you, and see their fate as bound to yours. But this force, once unleashed, must be handled with precision, or it will consume its wielder. Next comes Law 28, Enter Action with Boldness, where Greene shifts from faith to force, showing how hesitation destroys authority and boldness multiplies it. Law 28, Enter Action with Boldness. Principle. Hesitation is poison in the arena of power. Greene states this law without compromise: if you must act, act boldly. Half measures betray doubt, and doubt is contagious. Boldness, even when flawed, generates confidence. Timidity, even when prudent, breeds contempt. The world forgives mistakes more readily than hesitation. To win influence, you must step into action with the force of conviction. Boldness intimidates because it signals certainty. Others may hesitate, calculate, or vacillate, but the bold stride forward as if success were inevitable. This display of confidence unsettles opponents, rallies allies, and reshapes perception. Boldness creates its own truth, opportunities open to those who seem destined to seize them. Even when the bold fail, their audacity can preserve reputation, for people admire daring more than caution. The timid, by contrast, invite predation. A hesitant move reveals cracks, and rivals press into them. Worse, hesitation breeds paralysis. Each second of delay multiplies doubt until decisions die unborn. Greene teaches that timidity disguises itself as prudence but in practice destroys momentum and authority. The bold may stumble, but the timid vanish. Historical examples. Hernán Cortés embodied audacity. Landing in Mexico with a small force, he ordered his ships burned, eliminating retreat. The boldness shocked his men into unity and struck fear into enemies. Though vastly outnumbered, his certainty created momentum that carried him through impossible odds. Boldness, not numbers, forged his conquest. Napoleon Bonaparte understood the psychology of boldness. He seized opportunities with speed, striking before enemies could organize. His rapid marches and sudden attacks disoriented larger armies. Even when plans faltered, the boldness of his moves created reputations that magnified his power. Soldiers followed him not merely for strategy but for the thrill of serving a leader who dared. Artists and entrepreneurs reveal the same law. Pablo Picasso reinvented himself repeatedly, each time abandoning caution for radical new forms. His boldness offended some but compelled the art world to follow. In business, Elon Musk embodies audacity, announcing colossal ventures, staking fortunes on unproven technologies, and daring timelines others call impossible. Success or failure, his boldness commands attention and investment. Reversal. Yet reckless boldness can destroy as swiftly as timidity. Boldness must be paired with judgment. To leap from cliffs without vision is suicide. Greene warns that boldness is most effective when surprise, speed, and confidence amplify existing strengths. The timid must cultivate boldness to escape paralysis, but the already reckless must learn restraint. Overusing boldness can also desensitize allies. If every move is extreme, credibility fades. The art lies in contrast, periods of calm punctuated by decisive, unmistakable surges. One bold action carries more force when it erupts from measured silence than when it is constant noise. There are also contexts where boldness backfires. In delicate negotiations, overt aggression may close doors. In highly hierarchical systems, boldness may be read as insolence. Even then, Greene suggests that boldness can be reframed, not open defiance, but bold clarity, bold loyalty, bold service. The principle remains: be unmistakable rather than timid. Law 28 reminds us that the world yields to the daring. Enter action with boldness, and you shift the balance of power by sheer force of will. Stumble timidly, and you confirm your weakness before the contest begins. Power favors the audacious, those who dare seize authority while others deliberate. Next comes Law 29, plan all the way to the end, where Greene explains how foresight, not impulse, secures lasting power by shaping outcomes long before the final move. Law 29, plan all the way to the end. Principle. Greene's 29th law demands foresight. In power struggles, victory does not belong to those who improvise brilliantly in the moment, but to those who chart the course long before the final move. Without planning, ambition is swallowed by distraction, enemies exploit confusion, and luck determines outcomes. By planning all the way to the end, you shape the field itself. Each step becomes inevitable because the destination is already decided. To plan fully is to imagine consequences far beyond the first strike. It is to anticipate the reactions of rivals, the moods of followers, and the passage of time. The wise see battles not as isolated events but as stages in a drama whose final act is already sketched. Each move is judged not only for immediate effect but for its ripple across the long arc. This law emphasizes control. Without a plan, you are at the mercy of circumstance. With one, even setbacks feed progress because they were anticipated. Greene stresses that long-term planning is not rigidity, it is disciplined imagination. You do not cling to one path, but design multiple outcomes that all lead where you intend. Your power lies in shaping not just your first strike, but the ending others will believe was fate. Historical examples. Louis XI of France exemplified this law. Known as the Spider King, he wove webs of intrigue years in advance. Alliances, marriages, and treaties were plotted with meticulous care, so that by the time rivals acted, their choices served his hidden goals. His reign demonstrated that patience and foresight defeat brute strength. Napoleon also understood the power of planning. His campaigns were not impulsive charges but sequences of calculated moves. Before battles began, he had envisioned the terrain, the timing, and even the psychological state of his enemies. Victories seemed effortless not because they were easy, but because the plan had accounted for a dozen contingencies. In the corporate world, Warren Buffett applies this law to investing. He buys companies with a horizon measured in decades, not months. By knowing the endgame, the eventual value, the compound growth, he can ignore temporary storms that panic others. His fortune rests not on quick trades but on patiently executed strategies that unfold over time. Reversal. Yet planning carries its own dangers. An overly rigid plan collapses when reality shifts. Greene warns that foresight must remain flexible, the destination is fixed, but the path must bend. Leaders who cling to a single scenario are blindsided by surprises. Planning, all the way to the end, means preparing for alternatives, not writing a single script. Another danger lies in paralysis. Some plan endlessly and never act, trapped in imagined futures. To plan properly is to balance vision with momentum. A plan without execution is fantasy, action without foresight is chaos. Power lies in the union of both. Finally, beware of exposing your plan too openly. Rivals who glimpse your true ending will sabotage it. To preserve control, reveal only fragments, enough to reassure allies, but never the whole design. Keep the ending hidden until it arrives, and let others mistake it for destiny. Law 29 teaches that power is not seized in a moment, but secured across a horizon. By imagining the ending before the beginning, by charting paths that turn setbacks into steps, you command the flow of events. The world may call it fate, but it is your foresight disguised as inevitability. Next comes Law 30, make your accomplishment seem effortless, where Greene explains how effort concealed behind grace multiplies admiration and hides the labor that sustains power. Law 30, make your accomplishment seem effortless. Principle. Nothing destroys admiration faster than the sight of strain. Greene's 30th law teaches that effort, when visible, diminishes achievement. People are captivated by grace, the illusion that greatness comes naturally. To reveal sweat, anxiety, or struggle is to invite envy, doubt, or pity. The secret of power is to master complexity in private but present simplicity in public. This law is not about laziness but about control of perception. Behind every effortless display lies years of discipline, planning, and hidden labor. By concealing that labor, you heighten the aura of genius. Others see not the toil but the talent. Like a swan gliding across water, serene above, paddling furiously below, the powerful mask their exertions and let only elegance be seen. Effortlessness conveys superiority. When your rivals struggle to match you, your calm demeanor makes their effort look clumsy. When followers see ease, they believe in destiny, as though you were chosen to succeed. People prefer marvels to mechanics, they want to admire, not analyze. Greene urges, work until the task is under control, then hide the work, allowing mystery to magnify your power. Historical examples. In Renaissance Italy, the concept of sprezzatura, effortless grace, defined the ideal courtier. Baldassare Castiglione wrote that true art hides art, to dance, speak, or fight brilliantly while making it seem unstudied. The courtier who sweated or bragged lost esteem, the one who appeared natural won admiration. This ideal became a standard for rulers and artists alike. Frederick the Great of Prussia lived this law in war. His campaigns were built on meticulous preparation, maps, and calculations, yet in action he appeared calm and spontaneous. Soldiers saw a leader whose brilliance seemed instinctive. Enemies, believing him a prodigy, were demoralized before battle began. His labor was invisible, his aura invincible. In modern times, athletes and performers embody the same principle. Michael Jordan's plays looked like effortless flights, but behind them were endless hours of unseen practice. Steve Jobs' product launches appeared simple, magical, and inevitable, though they followed exhaustive revisions and rehearsals. Their audiences admired genius, unaware of grind. Reversal. Concealing effort does not mean denying labor altogether. Sometimes, a glimpse of discipline inspires respect, especially in cultures that prize hard work. But even then, effort must be framed as dedication, never as struggle. The distinction is critical: show commitment, not desperation. There is also risk in appearing too effortless. If achievements seem to come without labor, others may dismiss them as luck, or envy may sharpen into hostility. The wise strike balance: enough mystery to inspire awe, enough transparency to avoid resentment. Finally, beware of boasting about how hard you worked. Effort confessed diminishes accomplishment, effort implied elevates it. As Greene warns, never flaunt the forge, show only the finished sword, gleaming as if born whole. Law 30 reveals that power is as much theater as substance. Conceal the sweat, display the grace, and let others marvel at what seems effortless. Behind the curtain, labor. On the stage, enchant. Next comes Law 31. Control the options, get others to play with the cards you deal, where Greene shows how shaping the choices themselves gives more power than winning any single contest. Law 31. Control the options, get others to play with the cards you deal. Principle. Power is not only about winning contests, it is about shaping the very field on which contests occur. Greene's 31st law teaches that the strongest players are not those who outfight rivals within a given set of choices, but those who define the choices themselves. By controlling the options, you allow others the illusion of freedom while guiding them toward outcomes that serve your ends. Human beings crave agency. They resist direct orders and resent visible coercion. But when given alternatives, they feel empowered, even if every alternative benefits the one who set the terms. This psychological truth is the core of the law. The clever strategist never says, "Do this." Instead, they say, "Would you prefer option A or option B?" Both paths converge at the destination you intended. The subject feels free, and you retain control. This tactic neutralizes opposition. Rivals spend energy debating between false branches, unaware that the trunk belongs to you. Followers accept burdens more easily when they choose them, even if the choice was designed. By limiting the menu of possibilities, you frame reality itself. The more subtle the framing, the more complete the control. Historical examples. Greene recalls how Cardinal de Richelieu mastered this tactic. When nobles resisted royal taxes, he did not command outright. He offered alternatives: either contribute money or supply soldiers. Either choice strengthened the crown. Nobles debated furiously, but Richelieu's design guaranteed royal benefit. American history offers another case. During the U.S. Constitutional Convention, delegates fiercely argued states' rights versus federal power. James Madison framed debates so that every compromise still reinforced a stronger central government. Delegates believed they had preserved liberty. In truth, the frame of options had tilted toward union from the start. In business, Henry Ford revolutionized manufacturing while exercising this law in marketing. His famous slogan, "Any color so long as it's black," gave consumers the sense of choice, yet kept costs low by standardizing production. Customers felt empowered, Ford controlled efficiency. Reversal. But framing choices carries dangers if handled clumsily. When people sense manipulation, resentment explodes. If options appear too narrow, too convenient, or too obviously stacked, they rebel, not against the choice but against the chooser. Greene warns that the key is subtlety. The victim must believe their will is sovereign. The most effective illusions offer multiple appealing paths, none of which betray the hidden hand. Another danger lies in overconfidence. Leaders who always dictate options risk blinding themselves to genuine alternatives. Control of the frame must not become blindness to reality. The wise strategist controls the menu while still studying the landscape. True foresight means designing choices for others while keeping choices open for yourself. Finally, there are times when naked force is more efficient. In crises where delay risks collapse, offering options may weaken authority. But once stability returns, the subtler power of framing reasserts itself. Coercion compels compliance, controlled options win consent. Law 31 teaches that power lies not only in outcomes but in design. By shaping the options, you let others walk willingly into your plan, convinced they chose the path themselves. The stage belongs to you, though they believe they wrote the script. Next comes Law 32, Play to People's Fantasies, where Greene explores how illusion often commands more loyalty than truth. Law 32, Play to People's Fantasies. Principle. Reality is often harsh, disappointing, and uninspiring. Greene teaches that people crave escape more than truth. They yearn for stories that soften life's edges, visions that elevate them, and promises that defy the ordinary. By appealing to these fantasies, you win devotion that reason cannot command. Those who insist on confronting others with stark reality earn resentment. Those who provide illusion gain followers. The law is not about lying crudely, but about recognizing the hunger for wonder. People want to believe in miracles, effortless success, and hidden treasures. They want to imagine they are destined for greatness, loved without condition, or part of something magical. The powerful tap into these desires, offering visions that resonate more deeply than facts. By becoming the author of dreams, you eclipse competitors chained to realism. Fantasy also empowers leaders because it reframes flaws. A leader who offers only truth must answer for every imperfection. A leader who offers visions allows followers to forgive shortcomings in pursuit of the dream. The story becomes larger than the details. Devotion grows not from accuracy, but from enchantment. Historical examples. Greene highlights P.T. Barnum, the great American showman. Barnum filled his circus with exaggerations and wonders. Mermaids stitched from fish and monkey. Giants and curiosities. Audiences knew on some level they were being fooled, yet they delighted in believing. Barnum understood that people paid not for facts but for fantasy, and his empire thrived. Louis XIV embodied this law through grandeur. By turning Versailles into a palace of spectacle, mirrors, gardens, endless ceremonies, he made himself the sun around which all France revolved. Nobles, dazzled by the fantasy of magnificence, forgot political grievances. The image of divine monarchy outweighed the reality of taxation and hardship. In modern politics, John F. Kennedy captured imagination with the vision of a new frontier. His speeches invoked adventure, destiny, and exploration, turning policy into myth. Similarly, tech entrepreneurs often thrive on promises of world-changing breakthroughs, painting futures their products may not yet deliver. Investors and followers commit not to current reality, but to the fantasy of what might be. Reversal. Yet indulging fantasy carries risk. If illusions collapse too quickly, disillusion breeds rage. Barnum faced scandals when hoaxes were exposed too crudely. Leaders who promise utopias but deliver mediocrity face bitter backlash. Greene advises that fantasies must be managed carefully, bold enough to inspire, vague enough to survive scrutiny. Another danger lies in believing your own illusions. The storyteller who forgets the difference between narrative and reality risks ruin. The wise exploit fantasy without surrendering to it. They know when to enchant and when to calculate coldly. Finally, in some settings, science, law, technical negotiation, fantasy appears unserious. In such cases, illusions must be subtle, framed as vision, aspiration, or guiding metaphor rather than outright spectacle. The fantasy must inspire without undermining credibility. Law 32 shows that truth rarely binds hearts, but fantasy does. By shaping dreams, by offering visions brighter than reality, you secure loyalty and admiration. People cling to those who elevate their lives beyond the ordinary. Give them wonder, and they will forgive much. Deny them wonder, and they will abandon you for the first who provides it. Next comes Law 33, Discover Each Man's Thumbscrew, where Greene explains how every person has a hidden weakness, and how uncovering it gives you decisive leverage. Law 33, Discover Each Man's Thumbscrew. Principle. Every person carries a hidden weakness, a vulnerability that once uncovered, offers leverage. Greene's 33rd law teaches that power depends on finding this thumbscrew and pressing it. The weakness may be an insecurity, a secret desire, a fear, or a need for validation. Most people present defenses, pride, composure, resistance, but beneath the surface lies something that compels them. Those who can identify and exploit it wield influence far beyond brute force. This law rests on psychological insight. Human beings are not uniformly strong, their armor has cracks. Some crave recognition and melt under praise. Others fear exclusion and bend to avoid isolation. Some hunger for wealth, love, or adventure so deeply that they overlook danger to grasp it. By careful observation, listening, testing, watching reactions, you can detect these vulnerabilities. Once known, they become handles by which you turn people's actions to your advantage. The principle is not cruelty for cruelty's sake, it is strategy. To move others, you must speak the language of their need. Persuasion is weak when generic, irresistible when targeted. Greene insists that mastering this law requires patience. Never accept a person's surface image, always search for the concealed driver. Historical examples. Greene cites Cesare Borgia again, a master at exploiting weaknesses. When he faced nobles who resisted him, he studied their fears and desires. One wanted wealth, another feared exposure, another craved status. By offering gold, secrecy, or titles, Borgia bent each to his will. His enemies became instruments because he knew where to press. The great French statesman Talleyrand applied the law in diplomacy. He discovered that Napoleon Bonaparte's thumbscrew was vanity, his need for glory. By flattering Napoleon, Talleyrand survived his wrath and even steered policy. Later, he used the same knowledge to manipulate other leaders, offering them the recognition they hungered for. His calm exterior masked an unerring ability to detect insecurities. Writers and con artists thrive on the same principle. Confidence artists watch for hesitation and eagerness, the gambler desperate to win back losses, the lonely widow longing for affection. These cravings create blindness, making victims pliable. The con artist never invents desire, he discovers it and redirects it. Reversal. But pressing a thumbscrew carries risk. Expose a weakness too bluntly and you provoke rage, not compliance. People guard their vulnerabilities fiercely. If they feel mocked or cornered, they may lash out destructively. Greene cautions that the art lies in subtlety, applying pressure indirectly, framing satisfaction as kindness rather than manipulation. There is also the danger of over-reliance. If you depend too heavily on one person's weakness, you bind yourself to their instability. A man driven by greed may serve you today, but betray you tomorrow for greater profit. The wise use the thumbscrew to gain temporary leverage, not permanent trust. Finally, be aware of your own thumbscrew. Just as you search for others' weaknesses, others search for yours. Self-knowledge is defense. To master this law is not only to exploit but to shield yourself. Examine what you cannot resist, flattery, desire, fear, and guard against those who would turn it against you. Law 33 uncovers the psychology beneath power. To move others, you must find their hidden lever, the need that bends their will. Discover the thumbscrew, apply pressure with finesse, and people become instruments of your design. Fail to look beneath the surface, and you remain hostage to appearances. Next comes Law 34, be royal in your own fashion, act like a king to be treated like one, where Greene shows how self-presentation shapes the respect and deference others give you. Law 34, be royal in your own fashion, act like a king to be treated like one. Principle. Respect follows the signal you send about your own worth. Greene's 34th law teaches that people take their cue from your bearing. If you carry yourself with quiet authority, they accord you status. If you shrink, apologize, and over-explain, they treat you as lesser. Royalty, in this sense, is not crowns and trumpets, it is composure, standards, and an aura of inevitability. You set the price of admission to your presence by the way you present yourself. Royal bearing begins within. The king is not loud, the king is unhurried. Requests become expectations, favors become privileges granted on your schedule. You speak last, waste few words, and let silence work. You do not chase, you draw. The room organizes around you because you act as if your time and attention are scarce, and therefore valuable. This posture is contagious. People mirror the frame you occupy. Treat yourself as common and others step over you. Treat yourself as someone to whom courtesy is owed and courtesy appears. The principle is psychological. Humans watch for status cues, posture, tone, refusal to scramble, and align their behavior to them. The trick is consistency. When you wobble, your aura collapses. When you hold the pose through pressure, it hardens into reputation. Be royal in your own fashion means crafting a dignity that fits you. Grandeur looks ridiculous if borrowed, authority looks natural when tailored. You do not pretend to be a monarch, you embody mastery of your craft, steadiness under fire, and a refusal to be rushed. You set standards, then live up to them in public, until people accept the standard as the way things are done around you. Historical examples. Louis XIV, the Sun King, turned theater into sovereignty. At Versailles, he choreographed mornings into ritual, the lever, the coucher, the endless ceremonies, so that nobles competed for the privilege of handing him a sleeve. The pomp served strategy. By saturating court life with his presence, Louis made himself the axis of France. Nobles lost themselves in etiquette, the king remained the only constant. He acted like the sun, courtiers orbited accordingly. Napoleon Bonaparte understood that aura can outpace origins. A Corsican artillery officer, he crowned himself emperor in Notre Dame rather than accept the crown from the Pope. The gesture announced that his authority flowed from himself. He cultivated a spare uniform, a steady gaze, a posture of inevitability on campaign. Soldiers believed not only in his plans but in his person, enemies felt the same force as dread. He manufactured royalty by acting as if he already possessed it. Queen Elizabeth I made bearing her shield. Pressed for marriage to secure alliances, she stalled with calm serenity, receiving ambassadors as if they sought her favor, not the reverse. By dressing magnificently yet speaking with measured grace, she set the terms of engagement. Suitors and factions danced to her tempo because she behaved as the prize that chose, never the applicant who begged. Catherine the Great enlarged Russia as much with presence as with policy. She rode among troops, wrote with clarity, collected Enlightenment thinkers, and staged herself as enlightened sovereign, firm, learned, and majestic. Her curated image stabilized a throne won by coups and crises. The bearing came first, the belief followed. Even in commerce, the law holds. Coco Chanel dressed simply but with command, moving through rooms as if trends were announced by her step. Oprah Winfrey built a kingdom by cultivating a calm, generous authority, speaking softly, pausing often, and making guests feel that entrance to her stage was honor in itself. Their brands of royalty were distinct, but each signaled non-negotiable standards and self-possession. Reversal. The pose without the power invites rebellion. Act royal while incompetent and you become a cartoon tyrant. Greene's warning, bearing must be anchored in delivery. Standards you set must be standards you meet. If you demand punctuality and arrive late, your aura fractures. If you speak of dignity and display pettiness, the mask tears. The law is not license for arrogance, it is discipline of presence. Context matters. In cultures that prize humility or teams that distrust flamboyance, overt grandeur alienates. Royalty expressed as entitlement, cutting lines, speaking over peers, fishing for flattery, breeds quiet sabotage. Translate the law to the local dialect. In some rooms, royalty is understated, precise emails, calm decisions, immaculate follow-through. The principle is constancy, not spectacle. There are also moments to step down from the dais. Excessive distance starves you of information. If people fear to approach you, you become the last to know the truth. Periodically break ritual, walk the floor, ask questions plainly, absorb bad news without punishment, so that respect does not curdle into fear. You return to the high seat wiser, and your authority feels chosen, not imposed. Finally, beware of performing for approval. Royalty that begs for recognition defeats itself. The respectful silence you hold must be comfortable. If you posture anxiously, the room senses the bluff. Better to subtract, fewer explanations, fewer apologies, fewer sudden movements, until what remains is composed and credible. The aim is gravity, not grandeur. Law 34 teaches that power begins with self-presentation. Carry yourself with calm standards, and the world organizes around you. Lower yourself, and it walks over you. Be royal in a way that fits your nature, measured voice, economical gestures, decisive boundaries, and people will treat you accordingly. Dignity becomes habit, habit becomes reputation, reputation becomes rule. Next comes Law 35, Master the Art of Timing, where Greene shows how patience and precision transform ordinary moves into inevitability. Law 35, Master the Art of Timing. Principle. Power does not only come from what you do, but when you do it. Greene's 35th law insists that timing is the invisible weapon of strategy. To act at the wrong moment, no matter how clever the act itself, is to waste your effort. To act at the right moment transforms even simple moves into triumph. Mastering timing means aligning your actions with the rhythms of circumstance, appearing to command fate itself. Most people are driven by impulse. They cannot endure waiting, they crave quick resolution. The powerful are different. They cultivate patience, letting rivals exhaust themselves with rashness. They resist the temptation to react immediately. By delaying, they allow opportunities to ripen. When they finally act, it seems as though the world has bent toward them. Timing, in this sense, is the art of making victory feel inevitable. Mastering timing requires two opposing skills: the patience to do nothing, and the decisiveness to act instantly when the moment arrives. Those who act too early appear reckless. Those who act too late appear weak. The master of timing knows how to wait calmly, then strike like lightning. Their calm disorients rivals, while their sudden action creates the aura of prophecy. Historical examples. Julius Caesar exemplified timing when he crossed the Rubicon. For years, he built influence quietly, waiting until his rivals in the Senate were divided and weary. Then, with a single bold move at the perfect moment, he transformed political deadlock into unstoppable momentum. The same act at a different time would have doomed him. Timed correctly, it made him master of Rome. Elizabeth I of England perfected timing in matters of state and marriage. Surrounded by suitors and factions pressing her to wed, she delayed, year after year. Her hesitation seemed indecision, but it was calculated. By never choosing too soon, she kept foreign powers guessing, extracted endless concessions, and retained autonomy in a male-dominated world. Each delay increased her leverage until she was too powerful to be forced. In finance, Nathan Rothschild turned timing into fortune. During the Battle of Waterloo, he received news of Napoleon's defeat before London markets. Instead of announcing it, he waited until panic depressed British bonds. Then he bought in volume. When victory was confirmed, the market soared, and Rothschild's wealth multiplied. His mastery lay not in knowledge alone, but in knowing exactly when to act. Artists also exploit timing. Pablo Picasso reinvented his style repeatedly, not when audiences were comfortable but when culture was ripe for disruption. Each transformation shocked the art world into following him. General George Washington's winter crossing of the Delaware is another case. Launched in a season when no army expected battle, his timing turned despair into surprise victory, revitalizing a cause that seemed lost. Reversal. Yet timing, poorly judged, can ruin even the most brilliant designs. Those who wait endlessly for the perfect moment often paralyze themselves. Opportunities vanish while they hesitate. Greene cautions that patience is not passivity. The art lies in sensing the swell of the tide and committing before it ebbs. A moment too soon or too late is indistinguishable from failure. Another danger is appearing manipulative. If others sense you are deliberately stalling, they may grow resentful or suspicious. To avoid this, disguise patience as prudence or necessity. Seem cautious, not calculating. Let others believe delay comes from circumstance rather than design. Then, when you act, it feels natural rather than staged. Finally, not every context rewards delay. Some opportunities demand immediacy. Boldness itself can create timing, catching rivals unprepared. A general who hesitates in battle loses the initiative. An entrepreneur who delays may see rivals seize the market. The art is to discern when waiting strengthens you, and when it weakens you. True mastery means bending both patience and speed to your will. Law 35 shows that power is not merely action but rhythm. Those who act in haste squander strength, those who act too late miss the harvest. The master of timing waits with serene patience, then strikes with sudden certainty, creating the illusion of destiny. By aligning yourself with the tempo of events, you make the world believe you command time itself. Next comes Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have, ignoring them is the best revenge, where Greene shows how indifference wounds rivals more deeply than pursuit, and how self-control magnifies strength. Law 36. Disdain things you cannot have, ignoring them is the best revenge. Principle. Desire magnifies whatever it touches. The more you show you want a person, prize, or position, the more power it gains over you, and the more leverage others have to sting, bait, or humiliate you. Greene's 36th law says the cure is disdain. Starve the thing of your attention, and its importance collapses. Where pursuit inflates value, indifference deflates it. You do not argue, plead, or explain. You act as if the thing were beneath consideration. The true revenge is not to win it back, but to make it look small. This is a law of optics as much as emotion. Crowds, read your reactions the way sailors read winds. Flustered faces, long justifications, frantic replies, these advertise weakness. A calm gaze, a subject change, an unbroken routine, these signal that the loss touches nothing essential. Indifference becomes a story people repeat for you, they didn't even flinch. In power, stories harden into reputation, and reputation compels behavior. Disdain is not tantrum or sulk. It is chosen silence, letting rumors die without your breath, allowing rivals to perform while you decline the stage, refusing to correct the record unless it materially serves you. You conserve energy for moves that build position, new alliances, new projects, new patrons, while the thing you cannot have withers outside your light. The less you react, the more it shrinks to the size it deserves. Historical examples. In the Athens of orators, Demosthenes faced hecklers who tried to drag him into petty exchanges. He ignored them so completely that the crowd learned to ignore them too. The contrast, noise beside composure, made the slanderers look cheap and Demosthenes look grand. His speeches gained weight not only from argument but from the discipline with which he refused bait. When Pope Clement VII refused Henry VIII his annulment, the king could have begged or bargained endlessly. Instead he treated the Pope's denial as irrelevant, split from Rome, and named himself supreme head of the Church of England. By scorning what he could not have, the papal blessing, he turned deprivation into sovereignty. Disdain did not win the permission, it made the permission unnecessary. The Duke of Marlborough, frozen out of court intrigues, refused to grovel for favor. He focused on campaigns, winning battles that made gossip trivial. The court needed him, he did not need the court. By investing attention where he held leverage, the field, not the salon, he made the room that excluded him seem provincial. Artists have used disdain to outlast rejection. Edouard Manet met ridicule from juries and critics. He declined to chase their approval and kept showing his vision. What he refused to dignify, hostile verdicts, lost authority as new audiences formed. In time, the unaccepted became the vanguard, and the juries were forgotten. Indifference, held long enough, rewrites the hierarchy. There is also the calculated freeze in diplomacy. States sometimes choose not to answer provocations, no statement, no sanction, no speech, because response would elevate a nuisance into a peer. The snub itself is a message: we will not share a stage with you. The aggressor, deprived of the recognition they sought, burns resources to force attention while you conserve yours for outcomes that matter. Reversal. Disdain is a blade that must be sheathed in judgment. Spurn the wrong thing and you appear deluded. If everyone can see you wanted the prize yesterday, and today you announce it was worthless, your contempt reads as sour grapes. Let disdain be implied rather than proclaimed. Change the subject, redirect your schedule, build something better in public view. People conclude your priorities moved on, not that your pride was wounded. Some threats cannot be ignored without cost. A libel that poisons patrons, a lawsuit that will not die, an enemy gathering force, here indifference invites harm. In these cases, combine disdain with selective action, answer once, cleanly, through a proxy or a process, and then return to silence. The aim is to look unbothered while still removing the danger. When you must engage, do it briefly and without heat, as if signing paperwork. Overuse dulls the edge. If you disdain everything, you look cold, arrogant, or afraid to compete. The power of indifference comes from contrast. You ignore what is petty or poisoned, and you lavish attention on what grows your position. Let people see that you prize excellence, loyalty, or big, generative projects, otherwise your disdain feels like emptiness rather than strength. Finally, practice inner disdain, not just outer performance. If you perform indifference, while obsessing in private, leaks will betray you, late-night messages, compulsive replies, circles of complaint. The surest sign of mastery is that your calendar, not your captions, declares what matters. Where attention goes, value grows. Withdraw attention, and value withers. Law 36 teaches that craving enslaves but indifference frees. By refusing to chase what resists you, you keep your posture tall and your hands steady. Ignore what you cannot have, invest in what you can shape, and let time make the slight look small. The world reads, calm is power, and obeys it. Next comes Law 37, create compelling spectacles, where Greene shows how orchestrated images and ceremonies move audiences more quickly than arguments ever will. Law 37, create compelling spectacles. Principle. Words persuade, but images seduce. Greene's 37th law declares that power grows when you orchestrate drama that captures the eye and the imagination. Spectacle bypasses reason and speaks directly to emotion. Crowds remember the vision, not the speech. The banner, not the pamphlet. By staging compelling images, rituals, and performances, you bind followers with awe, intimidate rivals with scale, and make your presence unforgettable. Humans are visual and symbolic creatures. A simple act, dressed in ceremony, becomes legend. A routine command, wrapped in pageantry, becomes law. Leaders who master spectacle shape perception more powerfully than those who rely on logic alone. The principle is not deception but magnification, enlarging gestures until they dominate memory. Silence, robes, colors, lights, all become weapons when arranged to stir collective feeling. Spectacle also shifts the battlefield. Arguments can be countered, statistics debated, but images linger. They are difficult to challenge because they bypass analysis. A rival may win on paper, yet lose in the crowd's imagination. To rule perception, stage scenes that capture attention before reason has a chance to argue. Historical examples. Julius Caesar staged triumphal processions in Rome after victories, parading prisoners, spoils, and exotic animals. The city became theater, and Caesar its star. Citizens who might have feared dictatorship instead cheered the spectacle. The drama of the triumph overshadowed questions of legality. Louis XIV perfected spectacle at Versailles. He surrounded his reign with constant ritual, the lever, the coucher, ballets, and fireworks, turning daily life into performance. Nobles competed to appear in his theater, binding themselves through vanity and awe. The Sun King radiated brightest not through speeches, but through a stage where he was always at the center. Napoleon Bonaparte used symbols masterfully. He commissioned grand paintings of himself in Roman robes, distributed medals, and staged coronations that resembled epics. Even defeats could be reframed by visual grandeur. Soldiers marched under banners heavy with meaning. Citizens saw not a general but a myth. In religion, spectacle has long shaped devotion. The Catholic Church employed cathedrals, stained glass, incense, and music to overwhelm the senses. Believers entered not a hall but a vision of heaven. The experience bound them emotionally to the institution. Greene notes that the Church survived schisms and challenges, in part because its spectacles were unforgettable. Modern politics and entertainment echo the same truth. John F. Kennedy's televised debates, Martin Luther King Jr.'s March on Washington, and massive Olympic openings all prove that images unite memory and passion more than words alone. A single photograph can outlast volumes of policy. Reversal. Spectacle without substance can curdle into farce. If audiences sense emptiness, awe turns to ridicule. Leaders who stage grand shows while failing in reality invite scorn. Greene warns that spectacle must be anchored in at least partial substance, victories, competence, or genuine vision, lest the mask slip. Excess also dulls effect. Daily fireworks bore, constant theatrics exhaust. The art lies in pacing, alternating grandeur with restraint so that each display feels rare and commanding. Timing spectacle for maximum need, moments of crisis, transition, or uncertainty, makes it most potent. Finally, spectacle cannot replace true authority in every case. In private negotiations or technical matters, showmanship may backfire. There, clarity and credibility matter more than drama. Use spectacle to frame public perception, not to substitute for competence. The two together, substance and theater, create durable power. Law 37 proves that people believe what they see more than what they hear. Stage images that awe, rituals that bind, and performances that dominate memory, and your presence becomes larger than life. The crowd will remember the vision long after words are forgotten. Next comes Law 38, think as you like but behave like others, where Greene shows how conformity shields individuality, and why public difference often invites unnecessary danger. Law 38, think as you like but behave like others. Principle. Freedom of thought is private, behavior is public. Greene's 38th law warns that flaunting difference invites punishment. Groups cling to customs because customs feel like identity. When you parade your contradictions, dress that mocks the code, jokes that poke the ritual, opinions delivered like challenges, you trigger the group's immune system. You can think radically, even plan revolutions, but if you want room to move, you must outwardly respect the forms. Blend in, learn the idiom, observe the rituals, keep the flame of independence inside. This is camouflage, not cowardice. Camouflage preserves freedom by hiding it. When you behave as others expect, you lower their defenses and earn the access you need to do real work. The rebel who refuses the mask wastes energy on walls. The strategist wears the mask, passes the gate, and builds influence from within. You remain internally independent, reading, testing, scheming, while your public surface signals ease and familiarity. Conformity also protects timing. Grand reveals made too early die as scandals. The same ideas, introduced after trust has formed, are adopted as common sense. A wise operator lets the room ripen. Smile at the toast, shake the hands, sit through the ritual. Only once you are a fixture do you begin to bend the custom. The mask buys time, time buys power. Historical examples. Martin Luther began as a dutiful monk. His 95 Theses spoke in the language of reform, not rebellion. He appealed to scripture and tradition, not to novelty. The mask of piety won him a hearing, and by the time authorities grasped the threat, sympathy had spread. Had he declared a break from the start, the fire would have been smothered in the cradle. Galileo Galilei couched heliocentrism in cautious dialogues, bowing verbally to church teaching, even as evidence mounted. His prudence did not save him forever, but it prolonged his window to publish and mentor a generation. The moment he allowed public mockery of authority to leak through, he paid for behavior more than for facts. Greene's point: ideas survive longer when their bearer seems respectful. In the court of Tsar Nicholas I, poets and novelists slipped critique into familiar frames, folk motifs, orthodox echoes, patriotic scenes. The censors saw loyalty, readers saw the subtext. By behaving like others on the surface, they planted questions deep enough to grow. Modern organizations are no different. The executive who dresses to code, observes meeting etiquette, and speaks in the team's vocabulary earns trust, and with trust comes latitude to change process. The brilliant contrarian who performs contempt for norms is frozen out before their ideas are weighed. You are not judged only on thoughts, you are judged on how safely those thoughts appear to travel through the culture. Reversal. Conformity has limits. Hide forever and you vanish into the wallpaper. There are moments when difference must be revealed, when the group is fractured and hungry for direction, when your track record grants you political capital, or when waiting any longer means betraying your own work. Then you show the hand, measured, framed as loyalty to the group's deepest values rather than contempt for its habits. You do not flaunt rebellion, you cast reform as fidelity. Beware also of inner corrosion. Continuous performance without private relief breeds cynicism. Keep sanctuaries, a journal where your voice is unmasked, confidants who know your real stance, circles where you can test ideas without punishment. The law governs what you display, not what you are. If the mask becomes the face, you have lost the very freedom the law meant to protect. Finally, conformity should be strategic, not servile. People respect quiet ease, not anxious imitation. Perform the ritual cleanly, then relax, do not scramble for approval. A calm participant is left alone. A desperate imitator is despised. Your indifference to belonging is part of the camouflage, it assures others you will not disrupt for attention, and it reminds you that the mask is a tool you control. Law 38 teaches that society punishes the openly different, long before it weighs the merit of ideas. Think as you like, build your plans, and keep your spirit intact, but behave like others until the moment is ripe. Use outward conformity to slip past defenses, gather allies, and choose your reveal on your terms. Next comes Law 39, stir up waters to catch fish, where Greene shows how agitating tempers and muddying waters makes opponents expose themselves, giving you the catch without the chase. Law 39, stir up waters to catch fish. Principle. Calm waters conceal fish. Agitated waters bring them thrashing to the surface. Greene's 39th law advises that the surest way to expose, manipulate, or defeat an opponent is not through calm debate, but by provoking emotion. Anger, indignation, pride, all cloud judgment. The composed strategist, by stirring up turbulence, turns the passions of others into a net. Most people believe they are rational, in truth, they are governed by impulses. Insults, slights, and sudden disruptions lure them into revealing weaknesses. If you stay cool while others boil, you see openings they cannot. Your power comes not from overpowering their logic, but from shaping their mood. Stir the waters, and the fish leap into your hands. Historical examples. General Sun Bin of ancient China defeated his rival, Pangwan, by exploiting his temper. Sun staged a retreat, leaving fewer campfires each night, making Pang believe his army was deserting. Furious, Pang rushed into an ambush and was destroyed. Sun's mastery lay in stirring rage until strategy collapsed. Napoleon Bonaparte often provoked opponents by calculated insults or feints. He would appear weak in one sector, inviting reckless attack, then crushed the enemy who had overextended. By manipulating pride, he captured initiative. The waters he stirred drowned those who could not resist the bait. Thomas Becket, Archbishop of Canterbury, was another case. By feuding publicly with King Henry II and rousing clerical indignation, he forced the king into blunders that later sanctified Becket as martyr. His defiance created chaos that reshaped the Church's authority. In politics, agitators often use disruption to bait rivals into overreaction. Protesters who provoke a heavy-handed response often win sympathy from observers. The angrier the authority appears, the weaker it looks. By disturbing the surface, they expose the violence beneath. Reversal. Stirring waters requires control. If you lose your own calm, you fall into the same trap you set. To agitate others successfully, you must be cold within, even as you inflame without. Greene stresses that provocation is a tool, not a mood. Use it to make others reveal themselves, not to express your own frustration. Excessive provocation can also unite enemies. If your bait is too obvious, or your insults too crude, rivals may band together against you. Subtlety matters. The best agitation looks accidental, so that others feel they have stumbled into outrage on their own. Finally, some situations call for calm, not turbulence. When stability builds trust or long-term alliances, agitation may destroy more than it reveals. Use turbulence in contests of dominance, not in fragile partnerships. The art lies in choosing when to muddy the waters and when to keep them clear. Law 39 shows that composure is strength, and agitation is bait. By keeping yourself calm while stirring others, you draw enemies into rash moves and harvest victories without brute force. Stir the waters wisely, and the fish leap into your net. Next comes Law 40, Despise the free lunch, where Greene explains how dependence cheapens value, and why paying your own way preserves freedom and respect. Law 40, Despise the free lunch. Principle. What costs nothing, is often worth nothing. Greene's 40th law warns that gifts, favors, and free offerings are rarely free. They come loaded with hidden obligations, invisible strings, or contempt. To accept them is to place yourself in another's debt, to shrink in stature by appearing needy. Power demands independence, and independence demands that you pay your own way. Generosity has its place, but power flows from being the giver, not the taker. When you pay for things, you keep control of the transaction. When you accept too freely, you surrender dignity and become hostage to unseen expectations. By despising the free lunch, by insisting on bearing the cost, you project strength, self-reliance, and the ability to command your own fortune. The principle extends beyond money. Free advice, free attention, free shortcuts, these often carry subtle costs, bias, distraction, obligation. The powerful treat them with caution. They prefer to pay, for in paying they remain the masters of their choices. Historical examples. The Medicis of Renaissance Florence offered free patronage to artists and scholars. In return, they gained loyalty, propaganda, and cultural dominance. Those who took their generosity were remembered as great talents, but always under the shadow of Medici favor. The real power belonged not to the recipients, but to the givers. Cornelius Vanderbilt, the American tycoon, despised free gifts. He built his fortune by reinvesting relentlessly, never relying on handouts or state favors. His insistence on paying his own way earned him the reputation of being unbending, but it also freed him from obligations. He preferred control over comfort, and it made him formidable. Louis XIV embodied this law in reverse by showering nobles with free luxuries at Versailles. Rooms, meals, entertainments, he tied them to his court. The nobles seemed privileged, but in truth they were trapped, dependent on the king's generosity. The cost of their free lunch was political irrelevance. Even in modern business, companies offering free platforms or services rarely do so without intent. The real price is data, attention, or influence. Those who rush to accept often discover that what was free has become the leash. The wary pay directly, and in paying, preserve control. Reversal. Despising the free lunch does not mean rejecting generosity as a tactic. On the contrary, giving is a potent weapon. The key is to reverse the polarity. You provide the gifts, forcing others into your orbit. A well-timed favor, a lavish feast, or a free service can generate loyalty, dependence, even worship. The danger lies only in being the receiver. There are moments when refusing a gift is more dangerous than accepting. A token from a superior, or a gesture meant as honor, may require acceptance for diplomacy. In such cases, accept with grace, but balance immediately with repayment, ensuring you never appear bound. The true art is to erase the debt before it grows. Law 40 teaches that nothing is truly free. To accept without cost is to risk invisible chains. By paying your own way, you maintain dignity and freedom, while by giving freely, you make others orbit around you. Power lies in refusing to be fed and in learning to feed others. Next comes Law 41, avoid stepping into a great man's shoes, where Greene explains the dangers of inheritance, and why forging your own path matters more than filling another's. Law 41, avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. Principle. To inherit power is to inherit comparison. Greene's 41st law warns that following directly in the footsteps of a great predecessor is dangerous. Expectations become chains, the glory of the past overshadows the present. People measure you against a legend, and in the comparison, you shrink. To build real power, you must step aside, carve your own path, and avoid the trap of imitation. The principle is about perception. Even if you equal the predecessor's skill, the crowd still calls you a shadow. And if you fail, the fall seems twice as steep. The solution is not to reject history, but to redirect it, claim dissent while signaling difference. Honor the past, but innovate boldly, so that your name stands apart. Greatness borrowed is always less than greatness forged. Historical examples. Alexander the Great inherited the empire of his father, Philip II of Macedon. Instead of being remembered as Philip's son, Alexander expanded dramatically, conquering Persia and reaching India. By moving beyond what his father achieved, he erased the danger of comparison and claimed singular glory. In contrast, Louis XVI inherited the throne of Louis XV but never escaped his shadow. Where the Sun King had dazzled Europe with spectacle, Louis XVI appeared indecisive and weak. He lived in the palace built by his ancestor, yet lacked the force to inhabit it. Comparison destroyed him, and the guillotine ended his line. Peter the Great of Russia understood this law well. He admired the old Muscovite traditions but refused to be bound by them. Instead, he turned Russia toward the west, built a new capital at St. Petersburg, and refashioned his realm into a naval power. By refusing to inhabit the old shoes, he made himself a founder, not an heir. In modern times, political dynasties reveal the same risk. Sons and daughters of presidents often falter because they cannot step out of the parental shadow. A few succeed by rebranding, reinventing, or deliberately pursuing different causes. Those who cling too closely to legacy are consumed by it. Reversal. There are moments when stepping into great shoes offers stability. When a dynasty or institution needs continuity, echoing the predecessor may reassure followers. But the strategy must be temporary. Use the borrowed prestige to secure a base, then gradually assert your own vision. Another danger is excessive rebellion. If you reject the past too harshly, you alienate loyalists and look ungrateful. The balance lies in respectful departure, praising the legacy while subtly signaling new direction. By doing so, you win both the admirers of the old and the curiosity of those hungry for change. Finally, sometimes obscurity is safer than boldness. If comparison is impossible to escape, and the legacy is overwhelming, consider retreating to a different stage altogether. Better to be master of a smaller domain than a failed copy on the grand one. Law 41 shows that imitation binds you, while innovation frees you. To inherit greatness is to inherit peril. Step aside, create new ground, and let the past serve as inspiration rather than cage. Next comes Law 42, strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter, where Greene reveals how power often lies not in confronting the many, but in removing the one who leads them. Law 42: Strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. Principle: crowds, movements, and factions often seem threatening in their numbers. Greene's 42nd law explains that their unity usually depends on a single figure, the shepherd. Remove or neutralize this leader, and the group loses focus, quarrels among itself, and dissolves. Attack the mass, and you drain your strength. Target the source of cohesion, and victory comes swiftly. Humans crave direction. A leader gives them identity, slogans, enemies, and rhythm. Without that leader, they flounder. The law teaches that power is efficient. One decisive strike against the figurehead spares you the endless toil of wrestling with the mob. The crowd is less dangerous than its organizer. Historical examples. In the Old Testament, the Israelites often fractured when a prophet or judge died. Unity depended not on collective will but on one charismatic guide. The lesson: strike the shepherd, and the flock drifts. During the peasant revolt of 1525, German nobles faced masses of rebellious farmers. Instead of fighting every band, they executed leaders like Thomas Müntzer. The movement, decapitated, collapsed within weeks. The sheep, once fierce in numbers, scattered without direction. Niccolò Machiavelli observed the same pattern in Florence. Popular uprisings always rallied around a figure. Savonarola, for instance, who gave coherence to anger. When Savonarola was arrested and executed, his vast following disintegrated overnight. The fire had depended on one match. In modern politics, authoritarian regimes often tolerate dissenting groups but swiftly eliminate prominent dissidents who attract followers. History shows that without visible shepherds, opposition becomes scattered chatter. Reversal. The law carries risks. Striking a leader can backfire if the martyr becomes more powerful in death than in life. Executions can immortalize opponents, giving the flock a symbol more enduring than the shepherd himself. Greene cautions that neutralization must avoid creating legends. Exile, discredit, or quiet removal often proves wiser than spectacular destruction. Another danger is misidentifying the true shepherd. Groups may have figureheads who are replaceable while real power lies elsewhere. Strike the wrong target, and the flock rallies harder. The art is diagnosis: who truly holds the strings of unity? Finally, this law should not encourage paranoia. Not every adversary has a shepherd. Some movements are hydras, regenerating new leaders once one is gone. Against these, cutting off heads only multiplies them. Strategy must adapt. Infiltration, co-option, or redirection may be safer. Law 42 shows that the surest way to break a group is to remove the source of its unity. Strike the shepherd, and the sheep lose direction. Leave the shepherd untouched, and the flock remains dangerous no matter how many battles you win. Next comes Law 43, work on the hearts and minds of others, where Greene turns from breaking enemies to binding allies through persuasion and loyalty. Law 43, work on the hearts and minds of others. Principle: power built on fear alone is brittle. Greene's 43rd law emphasizes that durable influence requires shaping not just actions, but emotions. People follow willingly when their hearts are won, not merely when their bodies are compelled. To command loyalty, you must speak to values, desires, and imagination. Fear may silence for a day, affection and belief sustain for years. The law highlights persuasion as architecture. Build trust, offer recognition, appeal to pride, and you create bonds that survive hardship. By contrast, commands barked without empathy breed silent resistance. To win hearts and minds is to turn followers into allies who defend you even when you are absent. The most effective rulers inspire, rather than intimidate. Historical examples. Cyrus the Great of Persia expanded his empire not only by conquest but by tolerance. He respected local religions and customs, gaining loyalty from diverse peoples. His empire lasted because subjects felt valued, not crushed. Cyrus worked on hearts and minds, converting enemies into collaborators. Abraham Lincoln in the United States mastered this law during the Civil War. He paired authority with stories, humor, and appeals to shared ideals. Soldiers and citizens alike felt that Lincoln cared for their burdens. Even when he wielded harsh powers, his human touch preserved loyalty. Mao Zedong, though ruthless in many ways, secured peasant support during the Long March by speaking their language and framing the communist cause as theirs. His survival owed as much to morale and symbolism as to arms. Greene notes that revolutions thrive not by decree, but by devotion. Corporate leaders who apply this law often transform companies. A CEO who articulates mission, recognizes small victories, and honors contributions, commands energy beyond salary. The paycheck secures attendance, inspiration secures commitment. Reversal. Hearts and minds cannot be faked forever. If your gestures of empathy are masks, cracks will show, and betrayal will sting more than fear ever could. Greene warns that false warmth is poison. Authenticity, or at least consistency, is essential. There are also moments when working on hearts is wasted. In emergencies or when facing sworn enemies, decisive command may outweigh persuasion. Trying to win over the implacable only wastes resources. The art is knowing when loyalty is possible and when only force will do. Another risk is dependence. A leader who relies solely on affection may hesitate to enforce discipline, fearing loss of love. Power requires balance, win loyalty, but retain the capacity to compel. Too much heart makes authority fragile. Law 43 teaches that lasting power is not imposed but invited. By speaking to emotions and values, you transform subjects into partners, and obedience into devotion. Work on the heart as much as the mind, and authority becomes self-sustaining. Next comes Law 44, Disarm and Infuriate with the mirror effect, where Greene shows how reflection unsettles rivals and turns their behavior against them. Law 44, Disarm and Infuriate with the mirror effect. Principle. The mirror is a weapon. Greene's 44th law shows that by imitating an opponent's actions, words, or attitudes, you rob them of originality, confuse their sense of control, and often drive them into frustration. People expect resistance or contradiction, they do not expect reflection. The mirror unsettles because it turns their force back on them, making them feel exposed and mocked. Mirroring neutralizes aggression without open conflict. By copying gestures, tone, or strategy, you deny the enemy the satisfaction of distinction. When their uniqueness is stolen, they lose balance. At times the mirror also reveals truth, showing someone their ugliness more starkly than argument could. It disarms by removing contrast and infuriates by exaggerating flaws. Historical examples. Socrates employed the mirror in conversation. Rather than counter an opponent's logic directly, he repeated their claims back, exposing contradictions. His method disarmed through reflection, leaving adversaries tangled in their own words. Hernán Cortés, during his conquest of Mexico, mirrored the pomp of Aztec rulers. He entered Tenochtitlan with ritual displays, parades, and grandeur resembling Montezuma's own. The spectacle unsettled the locals, who saw their own majesty appropriated. By mirroring, Cortés blurred the line between conqueror and king. Gandhi turned mirroring into resistance. When the British taxed salt, Gandhi led marches to the sea and made salt himself. The act was simple reflection: if the empire took what was natural, Indians would take it back. The mirror infuriated Britain because it revealed the absurdity of the law. Even in business, the mirror disarms. Negotiators who subtly echo body language and phrasing often make opponents more pliable, because the familiarity breeds trust. Conversely, when used mockingly, mirroring can enrage, causing rash concessions. Reversal. The mirror is double-edged. Used crudely, it appears childish, provoking contempt rather than confusion. Mockery may unite opponents against you, rather than disarm them. The art is subtlety, mirroring just enough to unsettle without declaring parody. Another risk is dependency. If you only reflect, you reveal no substance of your own. Overuse makes you seem empty, a hollow vessel with no center. Greene warns that mirroring is a tactic, not a philosophy. Use it to destabilize, then follow with decisive moves of your own. Finally, beware of mirroring those who thrive on conflict. Some adversaries delight in chaos and may take your reflection as validation. Against them, the mirror only multiplies disorder. Choose targets who rely on authority, stability, or ego. They are most undone by their own image. Law 44 teaches that reflection is sharper than resistance. By turning an enemy's moves back upon them, you strip them of originality and drive them to fury. Subtle, calm mirroring becomes a weapon that disarms while preserving your own strength. Next comes Law 45, preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once, where Greene explains how gradual adjustment preserves power while sudden upheaval destroys it. Law 45, preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. Principle. Greene's 45th law warns that people crave improvement in theory, but cling to familiarity in practice. Change threatens identity, traditions, and comfort. Leaders who push too far, too fast, ignite fear and backlash. The art of power is balance. Affirm the value of change while introducing it gradually. By preaching progress but pacing reform, you calm anxieties and ensure survival. The principle rests on psychology. Radical reformers often believe logic will persuade. But the crowd resists not from reason, but from instinct. The old ways feel safe. If you demolish them suddenly, you strip people of orientation, and they revolt. Lasting transformation requires patience, layered steps, careful framing, and respect for symbols of continuity. Historical examples. Martin Luther exposed corruption in the Catholic Church but couched his critique in the language of Scripture and tradition. He did not abolish ritual outright but argued for its purification. By invoking continuity, he gained adherents who would have rejected total rupture. Duke of Wellington in 19th-century Britain accepted the inevitability of parliamentary reform but insisted on gradual measures. He recognized that resistance hardened against sweeping change, but softened when adjustments were presented as modest corrections. His caution preserved order during upheaval. The French Revolution demonstrates the danger of ignoring this law. Early calls for reform gained broad sympathy, but when revolutionaries abolished monarchy, church, and calendar all at once, chaos erupted. The result was terror, war, and eventually Napoleon's dictatorship. Too much reform destroyed the very ideals it sought to enshrine. In business, leaders who attempt to overhaul culture overnight often meet sabotage. Employees cling to familiar systems, even flawed ones. Successful innovators frame changes as extensions of tradition, keeping enough continuity that followers feel secure while moving forward. Reversal. There are moments when drastic reform is necessary, after collapse, war, or total discredit of the old system. In such times, gradual change looks weak, and bold rupture can inspire loyalty. Yet even then, leaders often cloak radical moves in symbols of continuity, new flags echoing old colors, revolutions invoking historic heroes. The disguise cushions the leap. Another risk is stagnation. If you always delay, you become captive to tradition, smothering innovation. Greene stresses that the key is tempo, not avoidance. Move fast enough to outpace decay, but slow enough to preserve cohesion. Law 45 teaches that change must be paced. Preach reform to show vision, but deliver it carefully so that people feel continuity, not rupture. Revolution without respect leads to rebellion. Progress with patience leads to permanence. Next comes Law 46, never appear too perfect, where Greene warns that flawless appearances invite envy and hidden enemies, while a touch of imperfection builds safety. Law 46, never appear too perfect. Principle. Perfection provokes envy. Greene's 46th law cautions that if you appear flawless, too talented, too lucky, too virtuous, you stir resentment. People secretly compare themselves and feel diminished. Their admiration curdles into hostility. To protect yourself, reveal small flaws, admit minor errors, or allow visible imperfections. These humanize you, soothe envy, and make your strengths less threatening. The law does not counsel mediocrity. You still cultivate excellence, but veil it with touches of vulnerability. Appear approachable, not untouchable. The goal is balance, respected, yet relatable, admirable, yet imperfect enough to disarm jealousy. In power, safety often lies in seeming less than you are. Historical examples. Alcibiades, the Athenian statesman, shone with brilliance in war and politics but flaunted his superiority. His peers, feeling eclipsed, turned on him. He was exiled, recalled, betrayed, and killed, not for lack of talent, but for appearing too perfect. His gifts bred envy that consumed him. Julius Caesar understood the danger better. Though a genius in command, he publicly cultivated modesty. He joked about his baldness, pretended reluctance to accept honors, and showed patience with rivals. These gestures softened envy, allowing his power to grow. His eventual assassination proves the law's warning. Even Caesar's skill at masking perfection could not shield him forever. Nicolas Fouquet, finance minister of France, built a magnificent estate at Vaux-le-Vicomte. His dazzling display of wealth and taste enraged Louis XIV, who saw in him a rival too perfect to tolerate. Fouquet was arrested and imprisoned for life. His brilliance had been his undoing. In modern culture, celebrities who share flaws, struggles, mistakes, humanity, retain affection. Those who project untouchable perfection often fall hardest when scandal reveals cracks. Audiences tolerate imperfection more than unreachable flawlessness. Reversal. There are contexts where perfection is armor. In competitions where weakness invites attack, flawless performance can intimidate rivals. Athletes, generals, or negotiators sometimes must project invincibility to deter challenges. Yet this posture is temporary. Sustained perfection always draws challengers determined to expose it. Another exception is when your perfection serves a higher symbol. Religious figures, cultural icons, or revolutionary leaders may embody ideals precisely because they seem beyond human frailty. But even here, distance eventually creates envy or doubt. Perfection inspires briefly, humanity sustains loyalty. Greene's lesson: use imperfection deliberately. Show vulnerability on your terms, not when enemies reveal it for you. A small crack you display willingly is safer than a great fracture others uncover. Law 46 reminds us that brilliance is safest when softened. Hide some light behind the curtain, or let small shadows fall upon it. Never appear too perfect, for envy is sharper than admiration. Next comes Law 47, do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop, where Greene shows how overreach transforms triumph into ruin. Law 47, do not go past the mark you aimed for. In victory, learn when to stop. Principle. Victory tempts overreach. Greene's 47th law warns that after success, people often press too far, blinded by triumph. The moment of greatest strength conceals the moment of greatest danger, for ambition stretches beyond limits, provoking resistance and unraveling gains. True power lies not in endless advance but in disciplined restraint, stopping at the right point, consolidating success, and enjoying the fruit rather than ruining it in pursuit of more. The principle is rooted in human nature. Desire has no natural ceiling, each achievement awakens new hunger. Yet the environment shifts, what looked like momentum becomes arrogance, what felt like dominance turns into overexposure. By mastering the art of stopping, you secure permanence. Those who rush past their mark invite collapse. Historical examples. Alexander the Great conquered vast territories, reaching India. But his men, exhausted and resentful, refused to march further. Alexander's ambition had outstripped his army's endurance. His empire fractured after his death, showing the cost of going too far. Cortés, after defeating the Aztecs, pushed for wealth and influence back in Spain. His ceaseless ambition won him enemies at court, and he died diminished, far from the glory he had claimed. His inability to stop when victorious ruined his reputation. Napoleon Bonaparte embodies the law's warning. Victorious across Europe, he pushed further, invading Russia in 1812. The disastrous campaign shattered his empire. His triumphs, unmatched in history, collapsed because he never learned the discipline of stopping. By contrast, Otto von Bismarck practiced restraint. After unifying Germany, he avoided further conquest, focusing on maintaining balance through diplomacy. He stopped at the mark, nationhood, and preserved his creation for decades. His discipline distinguished him from conquerors who lost all by seeking too much. Reversal. There are times when pressing further is the only path, when survival demands absolute dominance or when stopping invites swift reversal. In such cases, momentum itself becomes safety. Yet Greene cautions that even then, clarity of aim must guide expansion. Victory without limit turns allies into rivals and strength into burden. Another danger is stopping too soon. Overcaution can leave opportunities untaken, emboldening adversaries. The art lies in knowing your mark, ambition defined clearly before action, and halting once it is reached. Without a mark, you cannot know when to stop. Law 47 teaches that victory is fragile. Success must be savored, not squandered. Stop at the right moment, consolidate your power, and resist the intoxication of more. Ambition disciplined becomes legacy, ambition unchecked becomes ruin. Next comes Law 48, Assume Formlessness, where Greene concludes by showing how flexibility, fluidity, and the refusal to be fixed in shape give ultimate resilience. Law 48, Assume Formlessness. Principle. The final law distills Greene's philosophy into its most fluid shape: do not present a fixed form that enemies can grasp, target, or predict. All structures harden into vulnerabilities. The castle invites siege, the fortress becomes a prison, the title makes you a mark. To endure, you must be like water, shapeless, adaptable, moving where resistance is least, never trapped by rigidity. Form promises stability but breeds weakness. Once people identify your habits, positions, or defenses, they can plan against you. Formlessness denies them that luxury. It lets you dissolve from grasp, change direction, and reinvent identity. By refusing to be pinned, you frustrate pursuit and remain always a step beyond comprehension. This law is the culmination of all others. To master power is not merely to build structures, but to dismantle them at will, keeping only the essence of adaptability. Formlessness means embracing motion, ambiguity, and disguise. It is the posture of resilience in a world that punishes predictability. Historical examples. Bruce Lee famously summarized the principle, "Be water, my friend." His martial philosophy was not rigid technique but fluid response. By avoiding fixed stances, he became unpredictable, adapting instantly to each opponent. The lesson extended beyond combat: form limits, fluidity liberates. Genghis Khan exemplified formlessness in warfare. His armies moved like smoke across the steppe, never anchoring in one tactic. They feigned retreat, scattered, reappeared elsewhere, and struck unexpectedly. Opponents who relied on fortresses and rigid formations were undone by his adaptability. His empire expanded because it never confined itself to predictable patterns. The Medici family practiced political formlessness. Bankers, patrons, diplomats, sometimes exiles, they shifted roles with circumstance, surviving centuries of upheaval. Rivals tried to pin them as tyrants or merchants, but the Medicis were both and neither, adapting identities as needed. Mao Zedong, during the Chinese Revolution, moved forces constantly, retreating when pressed, attacking when opportunity opened. His strategy was formless, not to hold ground stubbornly, but to preserve strength through mobility. Victory belonged not to the one who clung, but to the one who flowed. Reversal. Formlessness is not chaos. Without inner purpose, shifting shapes become emptiness. Greene cautions that you must have core direction even while fluid in method. A river is formless, but it still flows downhill. Pure shapelessness confuses allies as much as enemies. Another risk: if you appear too undefined, people distrust you. Followers need some sense of stability. The art lies in balancing clear purpose inwardly, flexible display outwardly. Reveal enough form to reassure, but never so much that you are pinned. There are times, too, when solidity is necessary. Castles deter invaders, laws stabilize societies, rituals reassure followers. For power to last, you must alternate between shape and formlessness, offering structure to allies, denying it to enemies. Epilogue. We have reached the end of Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power. Across 48 chapters, we've seen power in its rawest forms, subtle, ruthless, brilliant, and dangerous. Each law revealed not just tactics but patterns, history repeating through kings and generals, merchants and artists, politicians and revolutionaries. Greene's genius was to show that these are not isolated stories, but threads woven through human ambition. The journey began with warnings: never outshine the master, never put too much trust in friends. It traveled through strategies of seduction, deception, spectacle, and restraint. Along the way we saw triumphs and tragedies, those who rose by mastering perception, and those who fell by ignoring envy, overreaching victory, or clinging too tightly to form. The book closes with the most fluid law of all, formlessness, the power of water, the wisdom of adaptability. Taken together, the laws reveal a paradox. Power requires strength and subtlety, ambition and patience, courage and disguise. To wield it well is to balance opposites, charm with intimidation, movement with stillness, boldness with restraint. Power is neither good nor evil, it is a force, shaped by the hands that hold it. Greene reminds us that ignoring power does not make it vanish, it only leaves us vulnerable to those who study and use it. For listeners, the lesson is choice. You can apply these laws aggressively, to dominate and expand. You can apply them defensively, to guard against manipulation. Or you can simply use them as a lens, to see the hidden patterns in politics, business, and relationships. Whatever the path, awareness itself is power. As this audiobook-style summary draws to a close, take a moment to reflect. Which laws struck you as familiar? Which made you uneasy? Which felt like secrets you had known but never named? Power is not distant, it is here, in every negotiation, friendship, workplace, and dream. Greene gave us a toolkit, how you use it is the story only you can write. And now, a message from me: thank you for staying with this journey until the very end. Your time and attention are valuable, and I'm honored that you chose to spend them here. If you found this summary helpful, please support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing it with others who love books and ideas. Your support helps us continue creating deep dive, chapter-by-chapter audiobook summaries of the most influential works in history, self-help, finance, philosophy, and beyond. This was The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, distilled into lessons for the modern listener. Until the next book, remember, knowledge is leverage, awareness is armor, and adaptability is your greatest strength. Thank you for listening.